All right, I need to change the title to Nick Fuentes and Sneako No Jumper Review. Okay. Yo, what's up, people? I am going to, for everybody who wants to know, I am going to keep Twitch chat open. If you want to stay inside of Twitch, I should have said this while I was on Twitch. If you want to stay in Twitch chat, type in Twitch chat. That's fine. I can still see it. I will see it. All right. Okay. All right, and for anybody who's in here, please like the stream because liking the stream gives the stream discoverability to new individuals. So yeah, because there's actual discoverability on this, unlike Twitch, I like to encourage people to sub, chat, inside of the talk inside of the chat, and like the video because that will actually genuinely get the stream suggested to random people. Like I have straight up been browsing like funk music videos, right? Like that style of like music, and just listening to it, and been suggested a fucking Mortal Kombat live stream because it gets enough likes, right? You get crazy shit suggested to you, depending on how it works. Are you double streaming? I am not double streaming, but I am still watching Twitch chat. Remember to switch to live chat? Oh yeah, that is true. I forgot about that. All right, so yeah. I do need to change one last thing about the stream because I believe my my preview picture for the video is no good. It is still the Mr. Girl shit. As much as I like looking at Mr. Girl's body hair, I am not watching a Mr. Girl video. So I need to change it to this. All right, there we go. So now it's like my default one. I need to talk to my editor about changing it because I want it to be more basic. All right, here we go. We're gonna go ahead and get started then. All right. Let's see if we can't find it quick. Here it is. I watched a bit of it, I guess.
Coolest podcast in the world, and today, me, AD,
No, I remember I jumped around to see what
and
it was.
Flacco are going to be having a conversation with probably the most controversial person that we're ever going to talk to, apparently, Nick Fuentes. How you doing?
300 subs
I'm
left.
good. How are you doing?
Pretty
Hey,
good.
true.
Sneako was supposed to be on this, and he may be joining us at some point. But, yeah, we're in here today to have a conversation. At least in part because Sneako has been urging me to, I don't know, accept Nick Fuentes into hip-hop. What are our stated goals for the...
All I watch is Destiny, and I love his streams, but I gotta admit, I'm not smart enough to understand 100% of what he's saying. That's cool, man. I mean, like, there's people, especially in DGG, that explain shit to you. It's chill vibes. Worst case scenario, you can ask me about it. I think pretty much every concept that Destiny talks about, I could explain to you in whatever manner. It's cool.
This podcast, Nick?
Well, I think we're going to have a good discussion. Well, I know that you had on Tariq Nasheed recently, apparently to debunk me. He talked about me and some of my views, so maybe we could talk about some of those things and recent news with Kanye. But whatever you want to do. Also, is this live or is this pre-recorded?
This is not live. We're going to
The lack of pushback in this interview was quite disappointing. We'll see about that. I want to see how this works.
drop it tomorrow.
Okay, I was under the impression it's pre-recorded.
This is not live. We're going to drop it tomorrow.
Okay, I was under the impression this was going to be live.
Are you live?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, that's great. Okay. So how would you say that? What's your overall opinion of hip hop? Let's just throw that out there. Let's get some Nick Fuentes opinions on hip hop.
Well, I'm a fan. I'm a fan of hip hop. I wouldn't say that I'm like a hip hop head, but I listen to rap music Predominantly Kanye West. I know that's going to sound like I'm bandwagoning because of the recent developments, but I've been a huge Kanye fan for probably 5 or 6 years. But I also listen to other things. I listen to like Nas and Tribe Called Quest and things like that. So I like hip hop music. I like rap music.
So
Black. What the ratio of Flocka to Adam commentary? I don't think my brain can handle more of them, man. That is a good question. Spoilers? He's not really a fan. Oh.
Black art is just fine with you. You don't mind hearing the lived experiences of black people. I feel like most people would assume that that's not something you'd be interested in.
No, I actually like a lot of black music, not just hip hop, but I like soul music. I like funk music, R&B. I'd probably say most of the music I listen to actually is black. I listen to a lot of music. I listen to a lot of white stuff too, but yeah, no, I enjoy that.
So you don't like to be called a white supremacist?
No, I don't identify that way at all.
Why not?
Well, I'm Christian, so there are arguments about genetics and things. Like I think there's definitely a genetic reality to life about there are white people, and there are black people, and there are Hispanic and Asian people. Like races are real, but as a Christian,
can you turn up the volume a bit?
I believe that we all have souls as well, and so we're all equal in that sense.
Sure. I don't know why it would be any quieter on this, but sure, because it's kind of loud on mine.
Before God. I think that there are differences between people as individuals and as groups, but we all fundamentally have an equality in the sense that we're all created. So.
All right, Ken, that's good.
You know what you're doing, and you know that people watching this at home are going to read between the lines. When you say race is real, they're going to take that as a dog whistle. I believe that's how they would use that phrase.
Yeah.
To indicate that you're advocating for race realism, aka black people are not as smart as white people and Asian people.
Well, that's not really what race realism is, and I know that Destiny and I've seen you entertain this as well. People say
that is exactly what
I put on a certain face and I put on a facade and I disguise my real views, but I'm very open about my real views. I've been canceled for my real views. I've been canceled because I don't hide my real views. And when I say race is real, that doesn't mean black people are dumber than white people. It means that there is a reality to race which is both constructed and biological, in the sense that race is real in the sense that, like, some people say I'm not white because I'm Italian, Mexican, and Irish. But for the sake of example, let's say I'm white, and that means certain things to me in a constructed way. It means I have a certain nationality, and you could say there's a history there and there's a cultural thing, but you could also say there's a genetic component too. Like white people have white skin. That's determined by genetics. And so race realism is simply the idea that race is a biological reality. Now, what you're talking about is these disparities in IQ, which someone who believes in race would say that disparities in IQ, well, IQ is a heritable
here we go.
Characteristics. You would say that that's the difference in IQ between the races is a function of a genetic difference. It doesn't mean that blacks are dumber than whites. And by the way, I brought up Destiny a moment ago because he's been popularizing this. He's been trying to say, Nick believes these things, but he's going to put on his good face. Destiny believes in the same thing.
Like, wait, hold on. I want everyone to take note of this, okay? Because there's a lot of people that are throwing shit, and this is honest, okay? But I do want to potentially give some pushback because I've seen the clip. A lot of people are going to talk about the clip. There was a clip on here that I don't know, at some point it gets mentioned, where Destiny was a critical component, or at least this is what Adam seems to imply in the clip. Destiny was a critical component as to whether or not Nick Fuentes was going to be on this podcast. That was said. At least in the clip. I don't know what the full context is. That's why I'm watching this, right? Well, part of it. I'm watching it because I kind of want to watch it. But that was said in the context clip. But I want it noted that right now, this is something important. I want it noted that Nick Fuentes right now is talking about all of the pushback that he gets from Destiny. That's how he's leading Destiny into this conversation. He's not leading Destiny as somebody who's platforming him. He's leading Destiny into these conversations about, oh yeah, I know how Destiny is always saying I'm hiding my views. I'm not somebody that's very honest about what I believe, that I am pushing this kind of race, IQ, genetic heritability. Even listen to that. his description of Destiny and his relationship with how he talks to him is a combative one. That Destiny is somebody that, from his mind, speaks untruths, speaks falsities about Nick Fuentes that we understand are absolutely true about Nick Fuentes, that he does hide his views, that he is, snaking around it. But that's how he describes Destiny. So when people talk about Destiny as if he's not giving pushback, from Nick Fuentes himself, who has an invested interest, if Destiny is indeed doing him favors, giving him a platform, putting him into relevancy, he has invested interest in characterizing Destiny in a positive light. So far has not. Maybe that'll change. Maybe he'll consistently throughout the rest of this podcast say Destiny's a great guy, he's really cool. I love that dude. Me and him get along really well. We agree on most things. Maybe that's what he'll say. But so far, it's been him trying to make the argument for why Destiny's opinion on him shouldn't be what you care about. Because Destiny doesn't understand what he's about, which is being honest, telling the truth. Yeah, I want to make a note of that.
Facts. He just doesn't believe in the genetic explanation, which is a legitimate explanation. He just doesn't tell you that.
Right. So, I mean, would you say that you've been smeared by the mainstream media or whatever as being more racist than you are?
Yeah. I mean, they lie about my views because, like I said, I'm very open about my views. I'm not ashamed of them. I'm looking for people to tell my views, and I can give it in the most extreme way. But people say things like Nick wants to live in a whites-only country. And
so what you're saying is to trust Fuentes? No, what I'm saying is that all of these fucking degens that are out here acting like Destiny doesn't give pushback to Nick Fuentes is a fucking loser. Now, if you want to make a criticism that Destiny even talking to Nick Fuentes is putting him into relevancy, I believe that's the original reason why the clip was surfaced. I believe the brother Max, or Mr. Girl to be more precise for more people to know him by that, was a proponent of the clip. And, a lot of people spread that clip around, and, that is a separate question, whether or not even the mere engagement with Nick Fuentes gives him the relevancy needed. And it seems like there might be evidence of that claim being true inside of this podcast, and we'll take a look at it. But I think that there is something to be said about the fact that the words that are coming out of Nick's mouth about Destiny is trying to dismantle the narrative that he believes Destiny is unrightfully putting on him, that a lot of us agree is absolutely spot on of Nick Fuentes, which is that he hides his beliefs. He tries to masquerade himself as something a little bit more palatable to the general public, so that way he can get his message out.
Thinks whites are better than other people. And it's like, I don't believe those kinds of things. So, yeah, so I am smeared.
What is your overall opinion about African American people?
I think they're what do you mean my overall opinion?
Just off the bat, what do you think about black people?
I think they're good people. I love people. I love all kinds of people. I love black people. My family goes back in Chicago like 4 generations, and so
listen to these questions. You're never what do you expect him to say? Oh yeah, black people suck. I hate them. Like, what are you looking for here, right? Destiny, he just got done saying that, like, other people, and then, Adam even addressed this, other people around him say that he masquerades his beliefs. And your thought is to ask him what he thinks of black people? To test if he, like, masquerades his belief? Are we serious? This is our honest?
My family's grown up with black people, lived with and among black people for over 100 years. My grandmother, she grew up in the projects in Chicago. My parents, they ran a security school on the south side of Chicago, South Loop, where they trained a lot of black people how to shoot guns and become security guards and cops and things like that. I grew up in the suburbs, so I didn't have as much interactions with black people as my parents and grandparents, but I think they're upstanding people. I like their art. I think they're talented. I'm friends with a lot of black people. So,
but you would rather live in an ethno state and all the races just sort of stick together?
I wouldn't say that necessarily. because the thing is that all countries have some amount of diversity. What I would say is I'm against immigration, because America's always been a white and black country since its founding. You know, when the United States was founded, or when Europeans began to settle.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to put it.
Even though obviously blacks were brought over as slaves.
I was gonna say, yeah, a white and black country.
When they were emancipated, and before that, it was a country that was white and black, and that is a dynamic that's changing in the last 60 years because of immigration. So I don't know that I would say like, oh, I'd prefer to. I mean, it is what it is.
That's true. Wow, Grape.
It's
like they didn't learn.
I just want to
from
stop
that.
immigration.
In what sense? Like, you just think that we allow people into the country too easily, or do we not allow the right kinds of people? I've heard that argument, that it's easy for like low skill workers to get into America, and that they sometimes make it hard for like PhDs to stay in the country.
It's just too many. That's the problem. Because the thing is, I guess I'll say it another way. I'm not necessarily against immigration, but we have now is like millions of people coming in every year, where you're getting tens of millions in a very short amount of time. And it's just changing how the country is fundamentally. Countries can have immigration. They can bring in, you could say, a lot of people without changing.
Millions of people? If it's millions, it's got to be like 2, right?
Like the demographic composition.
I don't know. Let me look this up.
Of the country, which is what we're doing. We used to have an immigration policy for a long time where it restricted the immigration groups based on national origins, and we would let them in waves, so they would come in and they'd assimilate. What we had after the 65 Immigration Act and the 1990 Immigration Act is they just opened up the spigot of immigration, and the people come and they just don't stop, and they come in bigger numbers every year, and it never relents, and it never stops. And what's happening now is it's just totally changing the landscape of the country culturally, in terms of the language, our identity as a nation. And that's honestly bad for everybody that considers themselves an American, I think. So, I mean, we can have low-skilled people to address, you know, the labor
It looks like, hold on.
needs, or high-skilled people.
What is this? I can't tell what how is this so hard?
People, depending on, you know, what you need, but bring in, you know, 100,000.
It looks like it's maybe $1 million a year. Looks like it's maybe $1 million a year. Like and comment for the algorithm. Yes, please. If you could, can you comment on live streams? Like and talk in the chat if that's something you want to do. Subscribe to the channel, please, in order to help the algorithm so that way more people see the stream. Because like I said, this is one of the only ways that people can find discoverability as a live streamer is on YouTube, because YouTube actually has a decent system of discoverability.
People don't bring in like 3 million people in a year, you know?
Right. What I will say is that when I see like a fucking refugee crisis, I'm just like, why is there any kind of pressure on us to allow any more people than we fucking feel like allowing into our country? Like, it's just not, it shouldn't be our problem at a certain point. And it's just crazy that we're expected to make this our problem, that people are just showing up and trying to come in. I don't know.
And that's the question, is what is their government's
So it looks like it's roughly, so when he said millions, it doesn't look like that's true. Immigrants per year looks like it's roughly 1 million per year. I was thinking, there's no way it's like, if it is millions, it's like a max of 2 million. And it looks like that's the case. Looks like roughly we have about 1 million immigrants per year, which is, what, 0.4% of the population per year grows from immigration?
responsibility to their own people. Every time there's a government that...
It's a very, very small amount. Wait, no. So if we have like roughly 400 million and there's only 1 million. What? 0.25%? 0.25, not even 1%, a quarter of 1% is how many people come in per year from that. I want to know how many people are born inside of the United States per year now, because I want to see what percent of new people.
It's toppled, or, you know, there's a horrible economic disaster or something. Like in Haiti. Haiti's a good example. There's something going on right now. And the Haiti government collapsed because their government stole all this money. You know, they had this deal with Venezuela where Venezuela loans them oil, and the Haitian government can defer payment for the oil, and they could sell the oil and then make money on it, and then they were supposed to use that for social programs, and the government just stole all the money. So then when the Venezuelan economy collapsed, they stopped exporting oil, and the fuel prices shot up, and now the Haitian government owes the money on the oil. And so now the economy's in free fall. There's gangs controlling the.
It looks like there's roughly 3.6 million, is what I'm seeing, 3.6 million births per year. So, roughly speaking, 1/3 of all people who come into the United States, like, new individuals to the United States, 1/3 of them, a little bit less than 1/3 of them, are immigrants. So it's 3.6 times the rate of people born are, 3.6 times the rate of immigration as people born. So for every immigrant, there's 3.6 native-born people.
Streets, and now all these refugees are coming to the United States and Central America.
Look at this refugee right here.
Gang. We talk about Haitians.
Yeah. Yes.
Sneako, welcome to the gang, I guess.
Panel.
Yeah.
Not a gang. I'm not in a gang with Nick. I'll take that back.
I'm in a gang with Nick.
You are.
See, I'm in God's gang with Nick and Ye.
Jesus gang.
I'm glad that you're back. Well, you guys, AD will agree with you on that. He's a big God guy.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, but I'm glad that Sneako is here because this was all his plan. I think that the whole theme here is basically Sneako saying that Nick Fuentes should be normalized and treated like a part of acceptable society, and that's what we're trying to hash out today.
He should be. And I think now that Ye's getting canceled and that he just signed with Parlay is proving the fact that if you talk about a specific group, that you will automatically be deplatformed. And you saw, I don't know if you talk about what happened with Nori, but Nori went on every fucking radio show apologizing for someone else's comments because all Ye said was he's jealous of Jewish power. That's as far as it went. And then
Jesus
even if
That's a nice view of what he said. He actually said something like way more aggressive than that.
Wait, even if that was just what he said, like,
but it was all because of the George Floyd comments.
That too. I think like the Jews stuff almost got pushed to the background in favor of people really trying to cancel him for the George Floyd shit.
Nah, hell nah.
No,
I think the Jewish stuff was
100%.
definitely like the prominent issue there, right?
I think they're both issues, but I just felt like I saw a lot more people honing in on the George Floyd shit.
I've never seen anybody, like quote unquote, get mass canceled for being quote unquote racist, right? In terms of somebody black right now. I believe that Kanye,
what?
especially like this morning with Hot 97.
Man, Flacco, this guy is just, he is a walking L. Oh my God. This guy is just irreparably stupid.
They brought him on to like address like his statements towards like like the quote unquote like Jews, right? Not right, but no here, right? But look at this though. Again, but the main issue was Kanye was quote unquote anti-Semitic, and he got canceled for that. And then Kanye went on Drinks Champ and pretty much doubled down on his takes on Jews, and that's what I think the issue is, bro. And again, like me personally, I don't think that Revolt or like IG or like YouTube is out here canceling Kanye because he said some racist shit.
Well, we don't know if
folks.
we don't know if the Drink Champs interview was removed because of Revolt making the decision or YouTube deciding to remove it. Although if YouTube might have said we're gonna remove it if you don't remove it, or Revolt might have just done it on their own accord.
Yeah,
it was probably Nori's publicist. His manager called him up and said,
Privated it though.
But
Ye was wilding.
Yeah.
Ye was talking crazy about the Jewish power. So what you need to do to protect yourself in your bank account right now is delete the video and go on every single radio show and apologize, or else they're going to come after everything and all your money. And so he did that. He said, okay, it's actually not worth it. I don't care what Ye said.
Where's the pushback?
I'm sorry. I just want to keep my bank account and I don't want to go on a no-fly list because of something that Ye said.
Well, it is weird if you're
Wow, that is a lot to interpret from that.
Nori and Kanye just start saying like, well, George Floyd died of a fentanyl overdose. And I mean, you're not the fucking coroner. Like, what do you know? Like how is Nori supposed to respond to that?
Stick to the science of it, though.
Yeah.
They said that he lost his life because of a lack of oxygen.
But does
You
Nori
know what I
have
mean?
these facts memorized? Like, that's why it's awkward, and that's why people say that we shouldn't platform people like Nick Fuentes.
He's too smart.
Because they're just going to say some random shit and we're just going to go along with it. But the more specific accusation about Nick is that he is basically bundling up his white supremacist ideas in this nice sports coat and everything, and that he acts real cool. Hey, I love black art. Yeah, Nas is cool. And that's what I like. That's what people are going to fucking destroy me for, is if I am not perceived as
not pushing
being
back.
aggressive enough towards Nick.
And I seen some shit today, and I said, you know what? I usually don't do my homework and shit like that. I seen some shit today that made me disgusted as an African American
Well,
today.
lay it out there, AD.
All right, so for one, you said you never seen black people jog before?
I'm at Arbery.
What?
Nah,
You
it's
were
not funny.
disgusted by that? Well,
I'm
white
disgusted
people
by that
jogging
because-
is a white people activity.
No, but in
What?
the sense of Ahmaud Arbery, you know what I'm saying, the way he lost his life because jogging in a neighborhood, and then some, you know what they did to him. That's fucked up. You know what I'm saying? I'm a black person. I don't look like I jog, but I jog. You know what I mean? Like,
Come on, where do you jog? You jog in the
Yeah.
streets
nigga,
in
no,
Lululemons?
I don't live in the streets anymore. I done moved out the streets, so I jog in a nice neighborhood
Well, you
where
still
I
got
stay
streets.
right now.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, the
To the
streets.
sidewalk.
yeah.
Well, and if you look at the specifics of the case, though, and that's a little bit of old news, so I may be a little fuzzy on the details, but he was jogging a long way from where he lived. He was jogging in boots. You know, you can jog, but usually jog in sneakers.
Listen, the brother Nick Fuentes is resorting to fucking arguments like, you guys got to remember, he was jogging in boots. So what, dude? Oh my God. Usually you bring your A game. What is that?
You jog in gym shoes. You don't jog in boots. And there was a series of break-ins reported in the area too. And he was caught on camera on that construction site. And I remember at the time, Matt Walsh from Daily Wire was like, this is just something that guys do. We go in, we climb the fence, we jump in, and we walk around construction sites to say, and it's like, okay, so he's in boots, he's miles from his house, he's jogging, he's on the construction site, there's burglaries in the area. Now, I'll admit, the way they pulled a gun on him, I would probably say that was probably over the line. And, they got charged for that. I would say, is that a first degree murder? No. What do you call that? I'm not like a lawyer. I don't know what you would call that. But the point is they try to make it out like this was the new Ku Klux Klan. The most you could say about it is the guys were overzealous about it.
But a guy ended up losing his life at the end of it.
Yeah.
And I think that
Come on, a little bit more, dude. I did 100% did the I 100% did the construction site thing when I was younger. I don't know what Nick is talking about. I know people that have done that shit before, for sure.
For
once again,
for
them to
technically
pull-
jogging.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, you can't argue if all those facts are true of a guy fucking far from home jogging in
Yeah, like the dude is far from home, so what? Like, did the people who shot him know he was far from home? Like, did they have like the tracker on him that they knew? Like, what is this argument? And even if they did know he was far from home, like, what does that argument even mean? This is what I'm talking about. His arguments are weak for this. He's wearing boots, and I've seen people jog in boots. Timbs? Are you joking? I've seen so many people jog in Timbs, especially depending on the weather. Yeah, the grip and shit is pretty good for you, depending on it. Not everybody has a pair of running shoes.
in work boots. That is pretty out of the ordinary. I think
Burglaries in the area? Why doesn't anybody push back on that quip? Well, I don't remember if there was burglaries in the area or not. And if there was, then I could see that as being a legitimate reason why they could be on guard, for sure.
the main issue people had with it was just the amount of force that those guys demonstrated and how comfortable they seemed to be with basically taking the law into their
Army jogs and boots? That's a good point. That's actually a very good point, Jacob Burr. A lot of military people do jog in boots.
own hands.
Yeah, and like I said, should they have pulled a gun on him? I said, I think that was inappropriate. But they try to expand this because that preceded the George Floyd thing by a few months. They try to turn that into there's a systemic white supremacy problem among the police, and it's like that's where you draw the line. Is this sort of like a bad situation, or does this represent this horrible undercurrent? I think if anything, it's quite the opposite. I think if anything, blacks get treated better than white people.
Hell no. Listen,
Absolutely.
I lived in some of these. I lived in Compton almost my whole life. And the way the police used to treat me and my friends was terrible, bro. And like,
not by the police. I'm talking about by the university. I'm talking about by the media, by the institutions. Sorry to interrupt, but
nah, I disagree with that as well too. I feel like now we're getting a lot of likes.
I think so. If we're actually going to honestly engage with this, because this is the tricky bit when we talk about like white supremacists and shit, because they'll say shit like this, and I think there's a bit of truth in it. And I think that bit of truth is that, yeah, like discrimination against white people, no one cares. The media doesn't care. Nobody gives a fuck. Okay? Nobody's looking into like nobody cares, right? But people care a lot about discrimination against black people. However, that's where like their caring about black people really stops. They care about the discrimination of black people for the clicks, the views, the likes, the comments. But then they just kind of move on. It's like your average content creator, talking about, George Floyd, oh my God, whatever shit, they get their views and then they walk. They don't talk about the black issues anymore or whatever. I think even I would fall into that category in a lot of ways. I've talked about a lot of black issues on this channel as they've come up, but once they're not really relevant in the political sphere anymore, I just kind of stop talking about them. That's the way most media works towards black people's issues. They talk about the discrimination. They don't really do anything else anymore. This is why I say there's a little bit of truth to it. But then if we look at the overwhelming narrative for a lot of the media corporations and shit, it's very much the normalization of white people's existence at the top of power structures, society really like at large. But I don't know. We could talk about depictions of white individuals being in positions of power and that media representation being, I think, a positive influence for white people. I do not want to see like a world in which white people are not represented in media and in entertainment as, high earning, powerful individuals. What I would just want to see is a little bit more representation of other groups of people. And I think for black people, in some cases, we're actually getting in some cases, we're getting overrepresented, but in other cases, we are getting closer to parity. I would personally say, that I think other racial groups need the boost. I think they do. I think like Native American people, Asian people especially, Indian people need far more of a boost when it comes to the representation inside of media than black people at the moment. I think black people are not doing great, but they're doing okay when it comes to their presence. I think that the presence, though, tends to not be great. So I would just focus on changing the presence for black people, and I would focus more on getting more presence for like other races of people. That's what I would say.
Shed on things because of social media and people having more voices than they usually have. But before, a lot of shit used to get swept under the rug. Like where I come from, I seen all type of, injustice that people don't even get to talk about. I got a lot of homeboys behind bars for shit that they didn't do. You know what I mean? Like one of my earliest memories that I could tell you about, I remember I was in a neighborhood one time and I got pulled over. And the police, they were asking me, oh, where you from and everything. They're checking my tattoos and stuff like that. I tell them, oh, nothing, whatever it is, what it is. The fucking, I don't know.
This guy has a TMNT tattoo on his leg.
Chief or whoever it was that pulled me over, he just leaves me for like 30 minutes. You know what I'm saying? In a bad neighborhood. And when he comes back, he smiles at me and my key is bent. I can't even drive my car. You know what I'm saying? Like, you want me to get hurt. When I was just, going to work.
That's
doing
your example of he left. Why is the neighborhood bad?
What do you mean?
Who's in the neighborhood?
We have
he's trying it.
White neighborhood?
No, it's not a white neighborhood.
He bent the key.
He bent the key.
I see. He bent.
To where I
couldn't
couldn't start my car. You know what I'm saying?
Why do you think though that I guess blacks are, like treated better in this country.
Or why is it so hard to believe that there are racist police officers?
I'm not saying there aren't racist.
It's just
police
the idea that
officers.
the whole institution is white supremacist is way
I agree
over the
with that,
line.
yeah.
No.
And
We don't-
that's kept to keep people brainwashed and yelling about stupid shit during the quarantine so that they focus on non-problems instead of what's really going on.
No, but it's-
Black Lives Matter didn't solve anything,
What?
and they told us to focus on this one instance of George Floyd. So maybe Ye was wrong talking about the fentanyl. I'm not sure, but the whole idea of it.
What? Wait, hold on. What? What? Did he think the systemic racism of police was that idea was crafted during COVID? Man, this is why Sneako's really dumb. Sneako is just not a dumb or not a smart guy. He's literally a kid that just grew up like in body but not in mind. He's just like, dude, you're such a child. Okay? Stop thinking everything is like some Matrix whatever shit. It's so cringe.
It was that George Floyd was just used as an example to make everybody outraged, and it worked. And we didn't solve anything with it. $85 million went no.
It's like the sexism against men. It's better to have people like this that can counter Nick with personal stories instead of stats. Nah, I think it's I think I would prefer it with stats. Depending on how those stats were delivered. I think personal stories can work well enough, but I don't know. Maybe you're right, because Nick is definitely a storyteller, but he also brings in stats. I don't know. That's tough.
Nowhere, and the neighborhoods that they were trying to protect are worse now.
Well, that definitely seems like it's true, yeah.
No, but
Yeah, and the thing is, I'm not like a big cheerleader for the cops or anything. I'm not like a Blue Lives Matter guy by any stretch. I'm not by any stretch a person that's going to say because there's cops that are assholes to black people and white people. And I think the cops as an institution are totally corrupt. When I say that, like George Floyd's a perfect example. Here's a guy who is a criminal. Here's a guy who is dealing drugs. He's got a long rap sheet. He's a burglar. And the guy clearly died from fentanyl. The autopsy report in that county said.
Oh, dude, let's see this work.
That he died of a heart attack. And he had all these drugs in his system. He not only had fentanyl, but also had methamphetamine in his system.
But the
So it's not really-
coroner said
the coroner
that he
didn't say
died
that.
from
He
the
died
knee on his neck,
from the
right?
knee on his neck.
Autopsy
lack of
said it was a
oxygen.
heart attack. Autopsy said it was a heart attack.
Is there a disagreement between the
Yeah.
autopsy and the coroner?
I believe there were.
Doesn't the wait? Oh. Wait, am I the idiot? Do coroners not perform autopsies? Perform autopsies. Autopsies ordered by the state can be done by a county coroner, who's not necessarily a doctor. A medical examiner who does an autopsy is a doctor, usually a pathologist. Clinical autopsies are always done by a pathologist. Might have been a pathologist.
Two autopsies performed. I think there was one that was performed by the county and one that was performed by somebody else. But yeah, there was a dispute about that. And they did find drugs in his system. So, and in any case.
But what does drugs have to do with the situation of why he got arrested in the first place?
Well, he died from he got arrested because he was trying to pass a counterfeit bill. So he was in the process of committing a crime. And then he was tweaking out because he was high. And then he was in this unfortunate position where, you're high and probably having some kind of heart attack or some kind of medical episode while you're in the process of an arrest.
Well, if you can't breathe and you're screaming out, mommy, you know what I'm saying? And you're saying that you can't breathe and they keep putting force on him. I mean,
he was saying he couldn't breathe before he was on the ground. He was saying he couldn't breathe before they were trying to get him into the cop car, and he was saying that. And I understand what you're saying, but the problem is
even still, if we assume the theory that he's talking about, like, drugs were a part of it, even if we assume that, like, him not breathing could have been a result of some shock related to that. and that it could have been legitimate, that he was having, I don't know, maybe muscle contractions or whatever. I want to hear what Nick Fuentes would say about the case of a white individual who was shot through the fucking head, and there was blood dripping down this dude's face. The cops proceeded to take this individual in because they thought he had killed his girlfriend, because his girlfriend was dead inside of the building. Essentially, cops walk up to a building, knock on the door, no answer, knock on the door, wait a little bit, preparing to enter, and this dude walks up, bleeding from his face, right? They check the house. Girlfriend is dead inside of the house, and they're like, okay, this is looking kind of weird. Your girlfriend's fucking dead inside, and you're sitting over here bloody, and you're not making coherent statements. And they didn't proceed to check him. What ended up happening was, long story short, some dudes broke into the house, shot his girlfriend dead, and tried to shoot him dead. But they shot him inside of the fucking head and went like through his nose, through his skull. And he had severe brain damage. Now, this individual needed immediate medical aid, but the police officers had every right to believe that this individual just committed a crime. It's a similar scenario to what even Nick, if I'm being generous to him, is trying to propose, which is that there is an individual that might need special, unique medical help, but was just seen or is perceived to have committed a crime. Do you get that individual medical care, or do you just assume guilt and put them inside of a compromising position? Keep in mind, this individual that I'm referring to, they just were put inside of cuffs and taken away. They weren't held on the ground. They didn't give protests to how the police officers were handling the individual. None of that happened. What happened was there was a guy that was clearly needed some form of medical aid, and it wasn't provided. Even if I assume Nick Fuentes' story, this is the same as that story, where there was an individual that needed special help with a medical condition, or they were undergoing a medical condition, that the police officers should have been able to help them with. But they actively chose not to and did something bad. That individual that I'm referring to, by the way, had severe brain damage as a result of the critical time that the police officers wasted bringing them to the station instead of getting them proper medical aid. Those cops are fucking lucky and should count their graces that kid's parents are fucking idiots, because that kid's parents did not sue the police department. Absolutely disgusting, in my opinion. If something like that ever happened to me and my family didn't sue, I would haunt them for the rest of their fucking lives. Gross negligence. But that is a story that actually happened. That is true.
In the middle of the story, where you got a guy who's like a criminal, you got a guy who's in the process of committing a crime, and he's high, and people want to start the story where he's on the ground and say, oh, well, they shouldn't have done this technique or whatever. And it sort of ignores the fact that, why do you have so much exposure between the police and black people? It's because black people are committing the majority of the violent crime. That's the real problem. If they had a crime rate similar to white people, there'd be a lot fewer incidences overall.
What? This doesn't make sense. Like, this doesn't even pass the smell test. What? Hold up, we're gonna double back over that. I can't. Yeah, I was gonna say it didn't. Wild Grape, your link didn't work.
And he's high, and people want to start the story where he's on the ground and say, oh, well, they shouldn't have done this technique or whatever. And it sort of ignores the fact that, why do you have so much exposure between the police and black people? It's because black people are committing the majority of the violent crime. That's the real problem. If they had a crime rate similar to white people, there'd be a lot fewer incidences overall.
This is where the stats guy would come in really handy, because one of the reasons why this is the case, and I'm not saying this is the only reason, but this is one of the reasons why, is obviously because of poverty. There's a lot more black people in poverty. He would retort with, why is there a bunch of black people in poverty? Maybe they're really lazy. Anybody that's worked a job knows that's not how it works. I grew up with a single mother inside of my household. She worked 2 jobs, roughly 12 to 14 hours, right, was her work schedule. She is broke right now, okay? Hard work does not get you money. If you've worked a job, you know what I'm talking about. Hard work doesn't automatically get you anywhere inside of this country, right? It depends on what you do. It depends. I think a really big problem with that, by the way, is managers. Okay? I'm just going to be honest. I've said this before. I don't want to go too deep on a tangent. I think a big reason why people get their soul ripped out of them when they do work and they don't feel like they should work hard anymore is because a lot of managers fucking suck, and they really don't like recognizing when people work hard and incentivizing people to work hard. They instead just do nepotism, fucking whatever weird bullshit, and they just end up giving, all of the benefits, any of the spoils to people that they're kind of friendly with. It is absolute dog shit. It has been something that has been very ubiquitous across many of the individuals I've talked to who have worked really, really, tough jobs, or even just, quote unquote normal jobs, right? For longer periods of time than I have, because I have had the fortune of not needing to work as much, primarily based on the fact that my expenses are so low. That being the case, that seems like a really big problem. Anyway, poverty is a really big issue, and hard work doesn't automatically result inside of, individuals raising themselves out of poverty. Poverty results in a lot of people doing crimes out of desperation, right? There you go. On top of that as well, on top of the poverty and, that resulting in black people doing crimes, there's an over-policing problem. So this is where stats would really be helpful. So for anybody who doesn't know, there are more black people that are arrested for drug-related marijuana offenses, so like marijuana offenses, than white people. However, black people and white people use marijuana at a similar rate. How is this? Why is this the case? Right? The case is because black areas are more patrolled for things like marijuana. Where they're more patrolled in general, but they're more patrolled for things like marijuana. So you're going to get more arrests. And with those more arrests, you're going to get people that say, look, there's more crime. Well, it's not necessarily more crime, as we know. The issue is that there's more people being arrested for crime, and those arrests result in something tangible that the police officers can use, that the FBI databases can use to be able to respond to, there being more crime in this specific area, which then justifies more policing, which then, of course, you're going to catch more instances of drug, and so on and so forth. That's how that works. I hope everybody understands that. That makes sense, right? That you get more cops patrolling an area, you're going to catch more crime. You catch more crime, it justifies more cops. You understand? It's kind of reciprocative. Like it's a loop. And this is where I would say that a stats-based individual would be very, very good for a moment like this.
Of police involved or cop involved shootings of black people or negative situations like that. So that's always the issue.
I think crime creates poverty, not the other way around. Really? Well, can't I simply disprove that by the fact that a lot of crime is done to make money in order to pay for either their own, even just in general, even their own stuff. I don't even have to resort to crime that's done out of need to eat or anything. Just for stuff. Like cars or fucking, I don't know, so way they can afford fucking whatever, like an Xbox. And if you already have an Xbox, why would you steal to buy an Xbox? Doesn't make much sense. You don't see very many multi-millionaires stealing so that way they can afford a yacht, unless you talk about wage theft or something, but we're not talking about that. That's a benevolent criminal theory. It's not even what I'm referring to. I'm referring to there's just people who steal stuff. If you want to people who steal, even in order to get luxuries, you're gonna steal. You have less need to steal if you have more luxuries. That's just how that works. Crime is generally committed by criminals. I don't understand the rationale that giving criminals more money would make them less criminal. Oh, okay. So I assume that you're of a different political affiliation. My arguments are going to have to be different for you. That's my bad. I thought you were... I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. You're a conservative, no? I feel like that I'm clocking you there. I apologize if you're not. My arguments have to be different. And I'm not trying to say that in a disparaging way. I just assumed that we were working off of a similar understanding that isn't there. So I'd have to change my argument. I do not believe that people who are criminals are just criminals. I don't think people are just bad because bad. I think this is a story that Marvel, Disney, Pixar, whatever shit sells you as a kid. And I think it's generally something that people grow out of when they're older. I don't know if that's your point, but I think that's kind of like a level 1 take on it. People are not bad because bad, right? That's not a thing. People aren't good because good either. I think that point of view gets a lot of people into a lot of trouble because there's people that'll go into, I don't know, positions of power or whatever, thinking they're the good guy. They're not the bad guy. They're not whatever shit. And they slip into the same issue. I think this is where a lot of corruption comes from, where people think I'm the good guy. I'm the guy that's going to do the right stuff because they think just good is good and bad is bad. No, it takes a lot of work to be somebody who is good. It takes a lot of effort. Now, being somebody bad can come out of desperation. It could come out of laziness, of lack of like caring or empathy for other individuals, you know, citing psychopath serial killers. But in general, the idea is that people are not just good because good or bad because bad. They have a reason for doing X and Y, Z thing, you know? And I'm even granting that there are people who steal and shit like that just for luxury goods because I'm not a fucking idiot. Not everybody who steals is so that way they could eat. Some people steal so that way they can play fucking God of War Ragnarok, which looks fucking great, by the way. God of War, it's looking great. It's like, can we admit that it's looking good? So that way they can play God of War Ragnarok on release day, right? Not because they need to eat or anything. So that way they can buy that PS5 and, you know, plug it in and run it.
I have a hard time trying to dissect it because I consider myself a truthful person. So when I listen to what he's saying, it's like I think Nick leads with statistics and facts a lot of time. And that's the problem, is that we're meant to think like people like him are bad and we're supposed to push back.
What do you think is the solution for that? Because instinctively it makes sense to police a higher crime area. Oh, I didn't see that response to Wild Grape a little bit earlier. No, I think it can make sense to police an area with that. I don't see an issue with policing an area disproportionately to another based upon real crime rates or whatever. I have no issue with that, but it depends on the demand of the area. So there's certain areas, let me give you an example, right? There was a big debate over crack cocaine versus powder cocaine, and I really liked it. I think Destiny had it with some people. I think it was Destiny. And it was about whether, I think it was Destiny had it with Fnatic. Fnatic had it with somebody, I believe. But it had to do with that, right? Is over-policing areas because of the presence of crack cocaine or powder cocaine justified? And the answer from Fnatic was no, obviously not. But a little bit more of a nuance, I'm not sure if it came from Destiny, but a little bit more of a nuanced take was the idea that crack cocaine actually has an individual using crack cocaine tends to have worse outcomes because it is, I think it was like cheap. It's cheaper to make. I forget the exact points. I don't have them off rip, but essentially it's more easily acquired and it's easier to get either hooked or to kind of fall into the pit of addiction on crack cocaine. The body treats it differently based on ingestion that can also result in worse physical outcomes for an individual as well. The way that you take in crack cocaine has worse health effects than the way that you take in powder cocaine. So that kind of presented an issue with, like, should we police areas that do crack cocaine disproportionately to powder cocaine as the negative results on the populace? And that's a little bit more of a nuanced conversation. The whole point is essentially supposed to be that it depends on the area. So if there's a specific area that's doing, let's say, marijuana, and it's not resulting in, you know, any what we would consider to be real negatives, because I don't consider doing fucking marijuana a real negative, then like whatever. But if there's an area that's like doing marijuana, but it's like also a production hub for marijuana that is, I don't know, controlled by gangs, resulting in a lot of gang violence, then maybe cracking down on that could make a little bit more sense. The war on drugs already kind of proved that's not really great or whatever. So you would have to use different methods like Camden, New Jersey used, which has, I love to use Camden, New Jersey because it has phenomenal. I'm ranting. I just realized how long I've been talking. Okay, we need to get back to the video. Long story short, there is ways to do policing, and having a lot of police a lot better. Camden, New Jersey is a great example. A lot of leftists will incorrectly cite Camden, New Jersey, because they'll say they dissolved the police department locally, which they did, but the thing they will not tell you is they actually increased dramatically the amount of cops that are patrolling Camden, New Jersey. But they have better results. And the reason why is because of several reasons. A lot better, policies for the police officers to be able to adhere to when it comes to engaging with individuals that they suspect might be doing crimes, de-escalation tactics, body cams, but a big part was community policing. Essentially, you have cops walking around the community, actually trying to integrate with the community, hanging out with people, and they wouldn't stop you for minor offenses. So like if you had like drugs or something, or specific drugs, they would just be like, okay, whatever. And they wouldn't care. They wouldn't bust you for it. If you're like, I don't know, doing graffiti or something, they wouldn't bust you for it. If you're jaywalking, whatever, minor offenses, they wouldn't bust you for it. Any of these things, like minor misdemeanors or anything like that, they wouldn't care. And the whole point was to integrate the police force into the populace in a more natural way. And what you saw was significantly better results with the police department. So yes, there is a way to get more police officers in an area and have better outcomes. Camden, New Jersey.
And if you don't push back, you are going to get in trouble uploading this video. Part of the reason I got a couple strikes.
I don't
maybe Dirty Dilly.
Pushback and everything.
No, but I just want to finish the point. Like you're supposed to, or else like that was part of the reason I was terminated on YouTube. Was I was listening to Nick and I was laughing and I wasn't disagreeing. But he could be on Destiny's channel or he could be on other people's channel who disagree with him and they keep you on. And I think that should show. But when I listened to him, and Adam, you called him a white supremacist earlier.
Well, I'm not name calling at all. I'm just trying to get him to be upfront about his.
No, but you said that. You said that Nick is a white supremacist. I'm curious to like what he said specifically that makes you think that.
Well, I did hear leaked audio of you comparing a white woman having sex with a dog to having sex with a black man, and saying that it was basically the same level of degeneracy, and that was like leaked audio. So I felt like that was kind of telling about what you might say behind the scenes.
Yeah, and
maybe that was a joke.
Well, no. I mean,
Sneako is fucking trying it right now. Jesus,
I can explain
It didn't sound like a joke.
Well, hang on. I can explain the context of that, and the thing is, I'm going to answer that. But first, I want to say the better question is, because I saw your stream yesterday, full disclosure, Adam, on Twitch, where you went to the SPLC, which is an advocacy group.
And I will acknowledge that the SPLC has deemed a lot of people and different podcasts that I enjoy like basically hate groups. So I don't put a lot of faith in their opinion off rip. So I did go there to get some information on stream, but I'm not saying that I deem them a respectable organization.
Well, and that's fair enough, but I'm saying the point is, and this is the question that should be asked about that, they're advocates. That's an advocacy group, and they're paid to mine. I've been doing streaming for 6 years. I produce thousands and thousands of hours of content. They're paid to mine, the 10 or 15 worst things, 10-second. Like, let me ask you, you don't know the circumstances surrounding that clip, but it was provided there for you in a 10-second bite for you to get a certain impression of me. And that clip is from 5 or 6 years ago. I know you might say, well, it doesn't matter how old it is because of the content is so offensive. But it sort of begs a certain question, which is, why does this exist? Who's paying for this? To what end? Why is the SPLC? Because at the time, I'm an 18-year-old kid. The circumstances about that is I was at a job training, and it was like 3 a.m. It's late at night. It was for a political thing. And I was saying that I'm against race mixing. I think that people should marry their own kind. I want a white wife. That's a value that I have. My race matters to me. My identity matters to me. I want my kids to look like me. I want my grandkids to look like me. I think that's a positive value that I think other people should share as well. I don't judge people that are mixed race.
Could you imagine his son or daughter bringing home a non-white person? Jesus Christ, man. No shot. Listen, I've been in situations like that where, I know that the person I'm dating, their family is racist towards black people or whatever, but this would be on a whole nother level, all right? This would be a whole nother level, dude.
I mean, some people say I'm mixed race. My dad's half Mexican. My mom's Italian. Some people would say that's mixed race. Obviously, I don't hate people that are mixed race or people that race mix, but it's just a value for me. And anyway, so I was explaining that. And this girl picks up her phone because I'm saying something that's because you can't be against race mixing, even though everybody was and every race other than whites still is.
Even black people say that all the time. I want to have black kids. I want to raise a black family. I'm black and proud. If black people say that, nobody blinks an eye. But when Nick says it, people are automatically assuming that it's something.
Well, I mean, just to be clear, when black people say that shit is cringe as well. It's a cringe thing to say, in my opinion. I think it is a very... I've had debates about this. My statements on this are documented, well documented. I think it is a cringe thing to be like, yeah, I want to preserve my race. I don't care what race you are. That shit weird. I don't care. Like, I do not care. That is a weird thing to be. Yeah, I just want to preserve my race. That's fucking weird, bro.
Racist.
No, you...
And I think
it's sus. Let me put it that way. It's fucking sus as fuck.
That context, I think that could be a joke. And I think that if you record any white kids Call of Duty lobby when they're 18 years old, or you record anybody at 3 a.m. when they're not knowing, I've made jokes like that. I make jokes about every single race. It doesn't mean that you're a racist person, but nowadays you have to be very careful.
Yeah, but the difference is that you're not literally platforming the idea that race mixing is bad even to this day, right?
At any moment, because you never know when someone's going to record it.
Well, wait, but so the point is, I'm saying, like, so that's the part that wasn't recorded, is I'm saying I'm against race mixing. Well, she sees me saying something that you're not supposed to say and says, I'm going to cancel this guy. So she gets her phone out and starts recording and says, hey, Nick, so do you think that having sex with a black guy is the same as having sex with a dog? So I didn't say that. Those were not my words. I was saying I'm against race mixing. She gets the phone out and frames it that way. And I said, no. And Adam, you saw the clip. I said, no, it's not the same. I said, but they both be degenerate. I said, they both be wrong. And then the same way that I would say, yeah, incest is wrong. Is incest the same as bestiality? No. Is rape the same as bestiality? You know, these are all things which I would consider wrong.
They're both degenerate.
But
Sneako just hops on board and is basically like, "Oh yeah, it's fucked up."
I heard him explain this whole thing before.
But you think race mixing is bad?
I don't think race mixing is bad, but I respect his opinion to think that he wants to further the white race and have white kids.
See, oh my God. Oh, this is what happens when you take a teenager and give him too much fucking money and clout, dude. This is exactly what fucking happens, man. You are so fucking dumb. Holy shit. Oh my God. I don't think I've ever seen somebody. I don't know. I probably have. I was about to say something silly. I was about to say, like, I'm not sure I've seen somebody this dumb be this successful. But, bro, like, there's people out there for sure. There's a lot of people out there. I shouldn't shit on him that hard, but Jesus Christ, this nigga's stupid.
I'm not going to judge what he wants to do.
I would have thought in any other timeline that Nick saying, like, oh, white people should just be with other white people, I would have thought that would be a super controversial statement, but it's hard for me to really take it that controversially when we've had people like Tariq Nasheed on here who clearly says the same thing about black people. Kevin Samuels basically said the same thing about black people.
People say that all the time. That's the problem wasn't that.
White people don't say that. White people are not allowed to say that.
He just said it.
Well, that's why he's canceled. He's on a no-fly list.
It's just hard for me to really take issue with him saying that when I feel like...
Yeah, this is the problem. This is legitimately my argument against people like fucking Endless and shit. Because it's impossible to argue when shit like that happens. It really is. Adam is, as much as I think Adam is giving him a W here where he doesn't have one, because the argument should be, right, that it's wrong for any party to do it. The problem is it's socially acceptable for black people to do this. It is. It's socially acceptable. It shouldn't be, but it is. And so it does become difficult to say, like, well, you can't do that. It is. So this has been my biggest argument against black people doing this, is the idea that they are necessarily giving white nationalists all of the ammo they need to be able to do whatever the fuck they want, like creating a white ethno-state. But because they want to say shit like, yeah, I only want to fuck and have kids with black people, because they're fucking idiots and they just have that as a priority because they're genuinely racist. I don't know. It's just, it is what it is, man. It is what it is. I don't know. Kind like kind. Black people can be racist too. That'd be my statement.
There's so many
And just to be clear, I think that their racism stems probably from like trauma or whatever, some whatever shit. It doesn't matter though. You're a grown ass adult. It's not an excuse. Grow up.
Well, of other races.
Before somebody says, the white people wanting to, mix with other white people is not the same as black people. Don't care. You're an adult. Grow up.
Basically say the same thing publicly and aren't really like held in any kind
Accountable.
of negative light for it.
I think that's why Nick was saying that it's easier to be a minority nowadays. I think when he talks about that, he's talking about freedom of speech. I think I'm a protected class, being Asian, black, and white. I'm able to talk about a lot of things and make jokes that Nick is not capable of. But even then, you could still tote the line and get canceled, as we've both been terminated.
Uh-oh.
Right.
But, I still haven't seen you. I disagree. I've heard Destiny bring up that same instance. I'm curious to what do you think Nick has said that's made you think he's a white supremacist besides that?
What about the black people's hands should be cut off at the airport?
No. Well,
Why
I don't mean
that
the
is funny.
Like what? How? In what
Oh,
context?
because it was part of a joke. It's part of, because I'm talking about. Because I'm talking about how there was this development where I think it was American Airlines or one of the big airlines said that gay men well, it's not just gay men. It says that men can wear the girls' flight attendant uniform and the girls can wear the male flight attendant uniform. And I said, you look at these videos from World Star or whatever on social media of black people fighting on planes. And, and I don't know, I mean, you're going to pretend this doesn't exist, like these videos of black people fighting everywhere at Disney World, at the airport,
Everybody
at
fights.
restaurants.
What are you talking about? I see so many videos of like everybody fighting. I think there's literally more videos of white people fighting because there's more white people.
What's that?
Everybody fights everywhere.
Not like that. Not.
I just seen a white nigga hit somebody, bam, in the back of the head on a plane.
Yeah, come on, Nick.
It happens
There-
everywhere.
yeah, it's not to say that- it's not to
wait a
say
minute,
that
it's
black
not-
people
it's
are the
not
only
just-
people-
It's not just black
Okay.
people. Everybody fights everywhere.
So you're into. I mean, listen.
It's not no denial. It's the truth.
It is denial. It is
It's-
denial. To
so
say
you're
that
saying
that's
only-
not like
so
a
you're
black
saying only
phenomenon.
black people fight at Disneyland and fight in airports and airlines.
I'm saying that
You a
when I go on
statistics guy,
social.
you with the truth, not what you see on social media. Where's the facts? I can show you videos right now where white people, black people, Mexican people, Asian people, everybody's fighting everywhere.
Yeah,
It really,
okay. I know everybody fights, but I'm just saying what I
so
see on social media.
why single out?
It happens
black
more
people?
with black people. It happens way more with black people.
See, I came up to the same conclusion before I even knew Nick when they were talking about the Stop Asian Hate Crimes in New York City. And then I talked to every single Asian person.
What?
Like I went to these protests and it made me really upset. I watched all the videos and the uncomfortable truth was Asians were afraid to talk about how most of the attacks, I would say 90% of them were black people because it's a protected class. You don't want to come off racist. And so they lumped it in and they used the crime statistics, which is hate crime. And hate crime is anything. If you say the word, use a racial slur against an Asian person, that's a hate crime. But the Stop Asian Hate Attacks was like when an old Asian lady gets pushed over into the train tracks or an old Asian lady gets punched in the head 40 times. And if you look at what race is doing that, it was black people. And the reason
I know that there is a unique relationship with black people and Asian people not liking each other for whatever fucking reason. There is a unique relationship with that that stems pretty far back, but I don't know if it's 90%. I feel like that's not true.
whatever justification you want to make for it, overall in New York City, there's more bums, there's more homeless people, there's more poor people that are black than other races. And so that's why poor people commit crimes more often.
Again, like, he's not wrong. Like, we're 14% of the population, and we're responsible for 50% of the violent crime. So he's not wrong. Like,
How is Flacco holding water for a white nationalist, but literally not some dude that is explaining the nuances of consent? What the fuck, dude? Some dude dares say, hey, guess what? Cuties was like not, well, no, I was going to say Cuties wasn't, but that's not even his position. He was saying that, what is it? The girls and Cuties are, he thought the girls and Cuties were attractive, well, he said attractive. But I feel like his greater point was that they were made to look attractive and made to be attractive. But that's, that shit shuts down the conversation. But, you know what doesn't shut down the conversation? Race mixing is bad. making fun of black people, comparing the race mixing to bestiality, fucking saying that black people are like apparently the only people that like fight in public. Like all of that, whatever. Flacco gets the Flacco seal of approval. In fact, Flacco will join you in that and give you arguments for why that's a based take. But God forbid you say that shit about cuties, and then Flacco is not. This guy cannot hold a bigger L. All right? In a room with Sneako, he is somehow the dumbest man in it. I don't get it.
We commit violent crimes more than any other race, but I guess where AD point is simply just fighting at Disney World or at an airport. How do you just attribute that to black people?
Well, and this is where tone matters. When I say I want to chop people's hands off, what I said was, you think about airplanes and airport security and it's TSA and everything because of what, Al-Qaeda, 9/11. I said, well, and this is explaining the joke, kind of defeats the point of it. But I said, well, I'd rather have the Taliban run the airlines and cut off the hands of all the black people fighting on the airplanes and put the flight attendants in burqas than have what we have now, the current TSA regime, where you're going to have black people fighting on the plane and then a male flight attendant in high heels is going to go run and break it up. It wasn't an assertion of fact of like, well, we looked at the data and black people are fighting on airplanes more than anybody, although I presume that's true. I haven't done the research, but I presume that's true. And so it's a
I don't even like what is the joke there?
joke. And the point is,
Is the joke just like black people fight a lot on planes? I don't know. No, I guess I could see that being funny if I didn't like black people.
and I'm a little bit disappointed. If you can't say, like, you know what I'm talking about, if you're gonna take umbrage at the fact that I say black people are fighting at the airport in Disneyland and say, well, white people fight too, like, you don't know what I'm talking about, that's just like either dishonest or delusional. I mean, I'm just telling it to you straight up.
Genuinely, as somebody that's trying to approach this in as cool ahead of a manner as possible, I really don't. I don't see what he's talking about. If you look up 4chan fight threads, and if you know 4chan, they are incentivized a specific way to show you specific stuff for the fight threads. If you look up 4chan fight threads, it's a lot of white people fighting people, or like white people fighting black people, or whatever. It's just because there's a lot of white people in America. That's what it is. I've seen so many videos of white people fighting other white people or white people fighting black people. And I guess Nick would just assume that the black person was the perpetrator instead of that situation. But that's, of course, not. It's not something you should just do. Samuel Jackson was pretty violent on that plane, though. Yeah, we should rethink this whole thing.
To say that makes me a racist because I have fucking eyeballs.
Yeah, world star memes.
I didn't call you anything. I'm just saying it's wrong.
Well, you said it was white supremacists. See, both of the instances that you guys brought up were kind of jokes.
You didn't hear white supremacists come out of my mouth for any
no, that was the question. My question was, can you name something that makes Nick a white supremacist? And both of you brought up jokes that, like, out of context, and the way you're saying it sounds bad, but that's what social media does now. You take things out of context to position somebody in a bad way.
I believe that 100%. You're right.
Right. So, and I think that kind of proves what you just brought up. But like, what belief has Nick said that makes you think that he's a racist or a white supremacist?
With the question though, so isn't like again, I may be like severely misinformed. Isn't a white supremacist just like somebody who thinks that white folks are supreme, right?
Yeah.
So the other races. Well, Nick, like, don't you think that white folks are supreme?
No, and I answered that earlier. And the thing is about so-called
All right, let's
white supremacy is it has to be a materialist worldview. You can, in my opinion, well, actually, that's not totally true. But as far as white people go, for the most part, you really have to not believe in the soul and believe in God to be a white supremacist. You can't be a Christian. You can't be, which is what most religious white people are. You can't be a Christian and say that white people are better than other people, because Christianity is a universal religion. It says in the Bible, that neither Gentile nor Jew. Now, people take that to mean like, oh, that means everybody's equal all the time or something. But it means that we're all Christian. We all have a brotherhood in Christ, and we are all equal before God in terms of our soul. For you to say that white people as a race are better than other people, it's like, well, in what sense? Then you'd have to measure it out and attribute supreme value to a particular thing and say, well, if white people are better at something than another group of people, that makes them better as a holistic thing. And that, again, that you have to be non-religious to view it that way. So white supremacy is incompatible with being.
This is not even true. Listen, as a former Christian myself, I can tell you, we've done some pretty fancy things around that. Because in order for what Nick is saying to be true, that means that religious people would also have to treat gay people and trans people the same and treat them with the same level of respect. And I feel like I can leave it at that. You know that's not how that cookie crumbles. You know there's a long history there. That culture is deep. That culture is deep. That shit is deep. And no, that is not how that shit works. That is not how that shit works at all. Right? It's because we pick and choose. We pick and choose when it comes to Christianity. When it talks about, I remember I actually I had a conversation with Fanatic about whether how religion works with like gay and trans people and shit like that. Like, can you say that if you as a religious person believe in a God that thinks that being gay is a sin, would you praying to and worshiping that God, would that be homophobic? Was the question, right? Essentially, if you believe in a God that felt like that. And, you know, the arguments ensued, obvious arguments ensued, like, well, if you believed in a God that said that being black was a sin, would that be racist, right? Would it be racist to be able to do that? And shit like that. Long story short, right? A lot of arguments were traded, right? People sat on either side. But I felt very good coming out of that conversation, in my opinion. I believe that praying to a God that believes that being gay is a sin and you should be damned to hell because you are gay, I believe that is homophobic. Because it is a choice to pray to that God, and you are making that choice. Even if you don't feel like it, it is a choice that you are making. I personally abandoned my religion on the basis of similar principles. I do not believe that a God is worth worshiping who, not for the reasons of gay people, I personally believe any God that would be willing to damn somebody to hell for eternity is not worth worshiping. That individual hasn't thought about their philosophies well enough, hasn't thought about anything well enough to believe that damning somebody to hell for eternity is a good idea. If that is a God, that is not one that I believe in. I do not worship that individual because that person's fucking cringe. That was the reason why, ultimate reason why I abandoned religion. It's just didn't make sense.
A Christian, and I'm Catholic. I am Christian, so.
Yeah. Now, a better question is, what do you think that white folks are better at, than I guess any other race?
Hell was never an eternity thing. It says that. It seemed to say that pretty consistently in the Bible. The preachers said that pretty consistently. That seemed to be a thing.
Than any other race? Yeah. Well, I would say that every race has their strength. I would say the white people are very good at literature and architecture and philosophy and
basically everything.
Well,
no,
I mean,
he didn't talk about dance. He didn't talk about culture. He didn't talk about art. He didn't talk about creativity. He talked about pattern recognition.
So you think that the soul of a black person is to be like a great artist or dancer or what?
Basketball player, football player?
Well, no, now you're talking about soul. I think that, yeah, I mean, black people are great athletes and they're great artists. And that's not to say that black people can't be other things or do other things, but we're talking about the strengths.
In general. And yeah, I see that I think I just saw the hypocrisy here. See, if we asked AD and your name is Josh?
Well, doesn't God have to be reasonable? In my opinion, God has to be reasonable for me to. I don't believe in the concept of faith as it exists, where I have to assume that somebody knows better than me, which is that like gay people are cringe if they act on their gay desires. That isn't it like you can't fucking drink or whatever? You can't wear like what is it, specific thread as well? I can't eat meat on a specific day because it's just the God knows more than me. That's ridiculous. I think these are just ridiculous ideas. I don't hold that as a thing. I would be more accepting of faith if it was like more reasonable, but just these ideas are just fucking laughable to me personally. I don't look down on anybody who practices religion though. If you practice religion, that's fine. I would look down on you if you practice a religion in a way that was discriminatory towards other individuals, though. I would say, yeah, that's fucked. but it's primarily for that reason.
No, that's Flacco. But you
I'm
can
off,
call
I'm
him
off.
Josh.
Well, if we ask,
Flacco,
like,
yeah.
if Flacco and 80, if we ask you, like, what do you think black people are better at than white people?
I don't think the Bible should be followed line by line. I think you ought to approach it more holistically. Yeah, but then you're just picking and choosing, like pretty much everybody else. And at that point, you're not following the word of God. And it's like, at that point, you're one step away from being me, which is just you're trying to create your own moral system out of the moral system the Bible lays out, which I think is just like, you might as well not be religious at that point. My opinion. That's why I stopped being religious. It's because I found myself like, this is reasonable. That's reasonable. That's not reasonable. Don't like that. Don't like this. And I realized I'm just making my own fucking philosophy.
You would both say dancing, music, basketball, like, and probably make fun of white people for being awkward. And nobody would get mad. Nobody would get mad at that. Everybody would accept that as a universal truth. That in general, black people are better at music. And then Nick says an honest answer, better at innovation, better at architecture. And then it's like, oh, well, so black people can't do it, right? See, you get offended when Nick is truthful about the white race, but you can be truthful about other races and then nobody blinks an eye.
Well, a question though.
No, so the thing that Sneako's getting caught up on is nobody batted an eye about him when he talked about black people making great art or whatever, because black people have made great art as far as like the general market is concerned, right? People enjoy a lot of the art that black people have done, primarily music, at least, is what I think is perhaps the most attributable one that most people can understand. But if Nick Fuentes just said, white people have made great architecture, great empires, I wouldn't care. Like, yeah, a lot of white people have made a lot of that shit, sure. I'm not going to be one of those weirdos like, oh, off the backs of whatever. Like, yeah, there's some pretty hideous shit that they've done. A lot of hideous shit a lot of people have done. I have no problem with somebody saying white people have done some incredible things throughout history. It's true. The problem that I have is that that's not what Nick said. What Nick said is that white people are good at architecture, like they're innately good at it. That's the issue, right? So if, Nick Fuentes says something like, black people have made great, works of art. Black people have been great athletes. I mean, these are true statements in material reality. However, if you say black people are good athletes, they are good at this, that is a separate statement. You are making a value claim as to how they exist. I don't believe black people are innately better at making music. I don't believe black people are innately predisposed or being better at being athletes. But I do believe that you can attribute, the material reality to a specific group, and I don't care.
Right, so, sorry.
No, you go ahead.
No. So, like, when, like, Nick says that white folks are better at, like, innovation, like, what did that mean?
Well, here's a good example. Asians, if you look at IQ, we talked about IQ earlier, Asians actually outperform whites dramatically on IQ tests and on math tests. And if you look at some of these tests, standardized tests before university. So if you were to say strictly by IQ, and by certain tests, you would say actually that Asians are smarter. Now, would you call me that? Because I say that, would you call me an Asian supremacist? Would you say that I think that Asians are better than everybody because they have a higher IQ in terms of this metric? When I say whites are more innovative, it's because although Asians have very high IQ and are clearly predisposed to being good at math, I know that's like a stereotype, but it's based on...
Hey, please like the video, by the way. It helps the algorithm and allows more people to come in and naturally find the stream who otherwise would not be endemic to the stream. It allows for organic growth. This is really the only platform where that is a thing. I can't do that on Twitch. So yeah, I would very much like it if you like the stream. If you're lurking, putting a message inside of chat also helps that as well. And subscribe if you haven't already as well. That it really does help. It helps the algorithm and helps people find the thing. I'm not just saying that to say that. Thank you.
In fact, they outperform every other group in math.
I did.
They're not as innovative, and that has a lot to do with their culture. That has a lot to do with their history, and of course, history and culture are in fact bound up with genetics. Behavior is bound up with genetics. We say things like the fruit doesn't fall far from the tree. What does that mean? Children are like their parents. And there's a question about, is that nature? Is that nurture? It has a great deal to do with nature, more so than many people care to admit. And the point is, so Asians, although you could say in one sense they're smarter, you said better than other groups, they're maybe not as innovative. That's why they steal American technology. That's why they struggle to do a lot of things the Americans do. And so the point is, and I get back to the previous point, all human beings, I believe, have inherent dignity. And
Wait, what? Talking about China specifically? Like, even if, hold on, let's even assume we're talking about China specifically here, right? All right, and let's assume I agree with this. What about South Korea?
have a soul.
Like, what about South Korea? What about fucking Japan? Doesn't Japan have one of the most innovative and successful car brands on Earth because of its reliability, its affordability, and shit like that? Like, isn't it? Let's even do what? The idea. Okay, hold on. Let me put it this way. Even if I agree with Nick Fuentes about, race and IQ and the genetic heritability, whatever genetic memes, nigga, you coping, hey? Asians having higher IQ and shit like that, and you're over here like, yeah, but we're more innovative. That's a cope, bro. You're just coping like that. I feel like you're the chick that's telling me that it ain't all about looks because she just got, like, better example. You're the nigga that just asked the chick out. She said no, and you called her a bitch anyway. That's who you are, man. You're just coping with that. Like, your whole thing, you're like dogging on black people for having low IQ or whatever. Niggas got higher IQ than you, and you're like, yeah, but we're innovative. Bro, it just comes off as a cope. It just comes off as a cope at that point. Isn't the classic race realist talking point that Asians are higher IQ, but whites are more creative? Yeah, some shit like that. And so, I don't know, it's cringe, though. It just feels like cope to me. But yeah, but whites are better. It's like, bro, what are you doing? He that gamer that only plays you. Nick would say cars are American tech in the first place. Oh, he probably would. Yeah, he probably would say some shit like that, wouldn't he?
And they have a brotherhood and universality and equality before God.
Toyota, Nissan, Mitsubishi, Honda, Subaru. Japan has a ton of top car brands. Are those all from Japan?
God. But that does not change the fact that there are inequalities.
They don't just produce cars, of course. Yeah, no. I'm just using cars as an example that Japan does really well. Really, really well. Japan does car shit really well.
Between peoples and groups on various different things. But would you say that because blacks are better athletes that they're better, they're the best race? Would you say that because Asians are the best at math that they're the best race, or because whites have the finest literature that they're the best? Who's to say? Those are all material things.
The finest literature? Bro, you can't tell me this nigga ain't coping. The finest literature? What does that even mean? What? Is he talking about literature that we consider in high regard? That must be what he's referring to, right? Like the some of the best-selling books or whatever that exist in the world? That's to say that that's just the finest literature. Like, that's reckless abandon about art. It's just not how art works. Nobody in their right mind would say, well, my book has sold more than yours, so it's better. What are you talking about? What are you talking about?
Those are all based on, material conditions.
Weren't most philosophers from Europe? Yeah. But, well, no, that's not true. Most renowned philosophers, I believe, are from Europe. And you could say that a lot of the European thinkers were responsible for great leaps and bounds when it comes to philosophy. I think history might back that up. The issue with a lot of this is the cultural hegemony that the Western world has over really the rest of the world. We really only hear about the dubs of the Western world because there was a lot of like news, media, control by the Western world. So There's a lot of Eastern philosophers. There's a ton of Eastern philosophers. There's fucking African philosophers. There's South American philosophers. There's tons of philosophers everywhere. The thing is that we attribute a lot of and I don't know if it's right or wrong, to be honest. It could be completely justified that a lot of the European thinkers were just fucking A1 stuff. I don't know, but that's kind of a part of the issue, is that there's kind of a media blackout on some of these other thinkers. But, yeah, there was, there's thinkers all over the place. I don't have an issue. If he said philosophers, I don't think I would have had an issue, honestly, though. If he said that, like, a lot of great European philosophers, I don't think I would have had an issue. Because it's similar to the claim that we were making previously about, black people that have made great music. And shit like that. It's like, okay, that's, at least at the moment, and, probably in the past, 40 years? True. That's really true. What, probably 40 to 70 years? That's pretty true, from jazz, funk, all the way up, disco, shit, all the way up, right?
Have a religious view, then we're not just...
Name one African philosopher. I literally don't know one. To be fair, I don't know one Eastern philosopher. I don't know one Russian philosopher. I don't know one German philosopher. Wait, is Nietzsche German? I don't know one English philosopher. I don't know one Italian philosopher. I don't know one Swedish philosopher. I don't know where any of the philosophers are from. I don't know, Marx? Nigga's black.
We have souls, and so we shouldn't be afforded...
would he be considered... No, he was like an economist, right? Or was he a philosopher? I don't fucking remember.
Rights and respect and dignity based on the fact that we're all human beings.
Mao? Was Mao a philosopher?
And I will say, though, that conversation, it is very weird that that's not a conversation that's really allowed to be had in public. And obviously somebody like Nick, who's been, characterized the way that he has been publicly, him having that conversation, a lot of people are going to reject it or whatever. But, a lot of people have had their careers basically dismantled for just having the nerve to have the conversation about the correlation between race and IQ.
Yeah, man.
You got to just deal with Bitcoin now, or what?
Yeah, I basically just do Bitcoin. I mean, the thing is, I've had checking accounts. They just keep getting banned. I had I got banned from Bank of America. I got banned from Chase. I got banned from US Bank. I got banned from, I think, one other one. I was on a local bank. They just banned me a month ago. I started up a new bank account. I'm hoping that goes okay. But yeah, I mean, the censorship thing is really critical, because it's like Kanye, years ago, maybe they forget, maybe not. He went on TMZ and said slavery was a choice. Now, would you say that constitutes something like slavery denial, if there's such a thing? We don't have a word for it. There's no museums, but would you say that constitutes something akin to that? He said slavery is a choice, and he was fine. He was fine. He put out his Jesus is King album. He put out Donda. He performed in Atlanta. He performed in Chicago and Miami. Then he said White Lives Matter, and he started talking about Jews. Then he lost his bank account. Then he got kicked out of stadiums. Then he got locked out of Instagram. Then he got locked out of Twitter. It's like,
yeah,
that kind of says where the parameters are. What's the line you can't cross? Everybody knows it's Jews.
So it's not comparable to blacks and Asians. Jews have the ultimate power, and that's not even anything.
What are we even talking about? Why do we have amnesia about all the people that have been canceled for being anti-black? Why are we acting like nobody gets canceled for being anti-black? That the money lies with being anti-Jew? What? How many people have been canceled for being anti-Jew? He could really only name himself and then Kanye. I'm sure he's got a couple others. But dude, I feel like there was probably 30 this year at least that get canceled for being anti-black. Do banks ban you for being anti-black? Some of them have. Yeah, some people have been banned from banks. Some people have been banned from fucking places. Going to restaurants and shit, local stuff, yeah.
Well, I don't want people to label me as anti-Semitic. I'm already...
The bank ban was before the Jewish statements, by the way. Is that true? Do you have a link to that, Shams? Because that's a very critical detail. If you have a link to that, that'd be phenomenal to see. If that was true. Because honestly, if it was after, it's not a good look. It's not a good look. But if it was before, then I'd like to see that.
But that's just true. They have ultimate control and power, and they will abuse it if they need to protect their agenda.
Yeah, I mean, there's no use arguing that one since we just saw it happen in front of our eyes with the Kanye bank situation. It's like, I mean, I don't know if he's going to end up regretting
that one is wild.
having said that shit or what, but
No,
I mean,
he's a genuine person. I think it's good that he's starting this conversation because, like, me and Nick tried to have it, but we only have a limited level of power. The fact that one of the most famous artists of all time and a billionaire saying it is like good. Now people are going to start turning their heads to this.
because this is the thing. I look down upon it, but there are a lot of fucking people out there who do not like Jewish people, and Kanye really is the first person I could pretty much think of in terms of like major celebrities to
Nick
come
Cannon.
out and really take that stance that you know that a lot of people would say behind closed doors. So
Nick
the
Cannon
fact
did it.
that
He
he
lost a
did
lot of
it,
deals.
because
Ice
he
Cube
really
did it.
sees himself as like the
And Jesus Christ.
vanguard that's going to say
hate
the
Jewish
things
people,
that
though.
nobody else will say.
he says that black people can never be anti-Semitic because we are Jews. That's what Kanye says.
Yeah. Now
He got the battery in his back from Candace, and he's out here saying shit that nobody ever said before.
Yeah, I definitely think Kanye is wrong. Like when he tried to like do the Hotep Negro shit of like, yo, but like black folks is the original. Yeah.
Yeah, what the fuck does that mean?
Yeah, bro. Like Nick Cannon got canceled for that though, because he brought like some dude on and who was saying that black folks are the original Jews, you know, and all type of Hotep shit. Yeah.
Damn. But what does
Yeah, that comes
mean?
from Farrakhan. That comes from Minister Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam, because
Right.
Farrakhan has talked to Ye and he's talked to Nick Cannon and these other guys. And yeah, I don't subscribe to the Black Hotep stuff, but you know, and Ye is coming at it from a position of credibility too. I mean, a lot of people are so quick to have this allergic reaction to anybody talking about Jews, but it's like, if anybody knew, wouldn't it be a guy?
I don't think very many people do. Well, maybe in public. I think some people have no problem really talking about this shit. The problem is, at least for his narrative, I don't think very many people like genuinely believe it. I think some people might meme about it or not really know about it, but I don't think very many people genuinely believe Jews control the world.
I like Ye because he's not only like one of the biggest guys in
I don't know. I know some normie ass niggas, like some real normie ass niggas that like don't know what Twitch is, and they'll meme about that shit, but they don't genuinely believe it. You want to know why? It's because they fucking see Jeff Bezos and shit like that. I don't think Jeff Bezos is Jewish, right? That nigga don't look Jewish, but like, or I don't think him or like Bill Gates or any of those people. Those are the people that they think like run the world. Like Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, fucking Elon Musk. Those are the people that they think run the world, or like fucking politicians and shit. Those are the people they think run the world, and there's not very many like Jewish people that do this shit. They, like, one of the only people that I think people really recognize as being in a position of power that is Jewish is probably Bernie Sanders, right? And that nigga ain't getting shit done. Well, he's not getting much shit done relative to like the grand conspiracy. I think he does get some things done politically because he's based.
music period, but he's
Zuckerberg is? Oh, yeah, Zuckerberg. Yeah, true.
also one of the biggest guys in streetwear period. And he's talked about for years that he's interested in business and he wants to do architecture and he wants to do clothing and he wants to
Soros? Is Soros Jewish? I didn't know if that was a meme or not. I haven't looked him up or anything. If Soros is Jewish, then yeah, that's another name I've heard before.
these different kinds of things. And it's like, so if anybody would know, he's been to the White House, wouldn't it be him of all people? Because, and the point being is, whenever you talk about Jews, people say, well, there's something wrong with you. Like you're like a sick individual, or you have some trauma, or you're insane, or you're a grifter. And it's like, you look at Ye, who's clearly none of those things. Like he's rich.
He's clearly going through a
mainstream.
mental fucking breakdown.
Bot
Nah,
answer, bro.
I don't
He's
think
been
so.
on a mental
He's-
breakdown for 6 years.
He's going through a mental breakdown, and then he's got a bunch of right-wing grifters like Candace Owens who got the battery in his back. He's just going out there to people like Nori who have never heard them, and he's just reiterating right-wing talking points that Candace is feeding him. And anybody
on
who's,
the red hat.
Candace Owens
anybody
is
who's
talking
watched
about
her
Jews?
can see it transparently.
Candace Owens is not talking
Married
about
to a Jew, right?
Candace is
Candace
smart enough
Owens
to not say that
works
shit
for a
publicly,
Jew.
but I'm sure he has all kinds of sources for his ideas at this point.
Nah, I
Yeah.
think it's just him working in all types of industries and seeing. If you work in the music industry, you know every single drill rapper has a Jewish guy behind them, and they profit off of murder. In every single industry, if you look at the end of the rabbit hole, it's always a Jew who controls it. Real
Everybody
estate,
who has a
you
chance
talking?
to is profiting off of murder in the
Yeah.
entertainment
Okay.
industry.
All right, but
What?
besides the point, Adam, that's the truth.
You're
Behind
saying
the scenes,
the label owners, the people behind
the
the
label
scenes.
owners, the real estate.
It's white people. Like, wait, what? Wait, who is he talking about? Drop names. Actually, I hate this shit. Drop names. Because based on what I've seen, a lot of these big label owners, execs, are white niggas. Literally, even if you wanted to say, like, whatever group of people, like Jewish people, I don't know if people know this. Jewish people are not the people that make the most money inside of the United States of America on average. But, like, I don't even know where this is at. Most Jewish people are not getting that shmoney. That's not happening.
Estate owners, like all the people with the most amount of money behind the scenes, is a Jewish guy. And I think for Kanye to become a billionaire, he's seen a repeated pattern, and he's a type of guy who wants to
They're Jewish, you just think they're white, yeah?
give the power, that same power, to his people. And so he's talking about the fact that, look, why are we out here slaving away for Jews who are profiting off of us killing each other?
Yo,
And he's been saying this for years. Even before this, you say, well, he's in the midst of a mental breakdown. He's been talking about this stuff since 2013. When he was on the Breakfast Club in 2013, he said blacks don't have the same connections Jews do. And then the ADL came after him and said, that's anti-Semitic.
Okay. Hold on. Hold on. Give me a second.
That's an age-old anti-Semitic trope. And it's like, well, it's true. I mean, it's obviously true.
So the largest record label in the United States of America, I just looked up, was Sony Music Entertainment. That's the largest record label in America. And obviously, Sony is not owned by a Jewish person. Okay? I could keep looking up record labels. I'll just keep doing this.
True that Jews have connections everywhere in finance, Hollywood, media, universities. They're overly represented in university, 1,200%. 1,200% more Jews in Ivy League universities than in the American population. So it's a factual statement.
Is that
but
because affirmative action helps them get more placement?
Well, no. Well, number one, no. And that's neither here nor there, because it's a factual statement. You could say, well, why is it? But it's true. And he got called anti-Semitic by a Jewish group. You could say, well, they're more overrepresented for one reason or another reason, but they are overrepresented. They do have connections. And Ye said, blacks need connections like Jewish people have connections.
So the second largest one being, this is a CEO of Columbia Records, one of the second largest ones. This nigga is a British dude. He looks, if anything, maybe Irish. He's got, it says he's British. I can see who his parents are. He was born in the UK. Yep, that's a British nigga. Nigga's got red hair and shit. Let's keep going.
Actual statement. And the ADL, which is Jewish, says, you're anti-Semitic, you need to apologize, you're a terrible person, and Farrakhan backed him up. So he's been
second or third largest company, RCA Records or something. A lot of these are subsidiaries of this shit, though. Oh, hold on. No. I'm looking at subsidiary shit. Sorry, the second largest one is Warner Music Group, which we could take a look at that. CEO. Stephen Cooper. I don't know what the guy's ethnic origin is. Okay, let's just look up Warner Entertainment. We'll do it from there.
Saying this for years. It's just that, and he said in the interview, he said, he didn't want to split apart his family because obviously to say these things, he said he was living in a glass prison where he's up there, he's elevated, he's got the big house and everything, but he can't say what he needs to.
It looks like Warner Bros. Is owned by multiple different people. It doesn't look like they have a direct CEO. What? Who's the current CEO? Oh, no, here it is. David Blaziv? He's an American, born in New York.
To say, even though he's influential and rich and everything, he's still in a prison because there's certain lines he can't cross, and he wanted to hold his family together. And then he said he finally had enough. That was in the Tucker interview. So that I would push.
And
back
I think
against.
it's too easy to overwrite something that by saying that he's just he's a bot for Candace Owens, or he's repeating right-wing talking points. And
yeah, I don't know.
He's on a mental break.
CEOs are employees, bruh. I know.
Down, he's insane. I just did a podcast.
They're like chief executives, though. Are we talking about the board then? A lot of people on boards are not public. They're not easily findable.
With academics 2 days before you, and he said the exact same thing. And I was talking about what Ye was trying to expose before the Drink Champs interview, and he said the same thing. He's clearly off his meds, bipolar, bro. So he's been off his meds in a bipolar mental manic episode for fucking 6 years. He went to the hospital in 2016 after the Pablo show. So if he's been on a 6-year-long manic episode, that's the longest manic episode ever. And even in that period, he's made billions of dollars.
Me and academics have been paying extremely close attention to Kanye's life for, like, in my case, easily like 20 years, like since he first came on the scene. And my honest perspective is that, yes, the stresses of just being unbelievably rich and having his family taken away from him and all these other things are weighing on him to the extent that he's having something that I would describe as a mental breakdown. I would say that is fair to say.
6 years straight.
And I think it's very convenient that a lot of these right-wing type people are just there to...
You can be high functioning with mental illness. Well, also just like legitimately, Sneako's presenting it as a 6-year manic episode. If you don't get your shit properly treated, that shit can go for the rest of your life. Like, I don't think he understands how potential mental illness works. Like, if your shit is untreated, you don't, like, I guess, luck out and, like, find a way to deal with it easily, like, without the assistance of a therapist, which you should find. You genuinely just have to deal with that for your entire fucking life. There's people that struggle with, like, autism for, like, 50 years and then get a diagnosis, like, that late in life. It's like, oh, yeah, you had autism. And they're like, oh, fuck, like, so much of my shit makes sense now. It's like, yeah, that shit happens all the time.
Sort of like slide their narrative in with him. But I mean, you're right. Like, he's been very susceptible to this stuff. It's known
Kanye goes off of medication periodically. He literally said in the interview that he got canceled for that he explicitly denied or he explicitly didn't want to go on his meds because other people were telling him to be on them. He said explicitly, no, fuck that. I'm going against all these people in the background telling me to go on my meds. Those meds hurt my genius.
Long time. And I realize that when I talk about him like that I'm kind of infantilizing him, I believe is how you say it. Yeah, and, I think that's probably kind of fair, but I feel like he's in like a weakened mental state and that people are taking advantage of it.
Yeah, I just would disagree with that because, the people around him are not pushing anti-Jewish views. I mean,
nobody
Candace Owens. Yeah, and certainly not Candace Owens. And to some extent, well,
wait. What happened a minute ago when you agreed with the idea that a bunch of people held these anti-Jewish views just in private? But now, as soon as it comes time where the idea that, like, maybe it's other people's anti-Jewish views that he's hearing and taking in, you're like, no, nobody has anti-Jewish views. Like, you're inconsistent even in your own worldview.
Would be my counterexample. In 2018, when he put on the MAGA hat and he went to the White House, two people came in, Candace Owens, who's his friend, And Candace Owens, at the time, she works now for Ben Shapiro at Daily Wire. At that time, she worked for Turning Point USA. She worked for Charlie Kirk. And so Candace Owens with Charlie Kirk was meeting with Ye, and they were trying to get him to do Brexit conferences and do Turning Point stuff. And if you remember, it was in the end of the summer, I think in the beginning of the fall 2018, Kanye said, I'm done with politics. I'm being used, and I don't like it anymore. So even you could say at the height, if you're saying that he's in a mental health crisis, when he released the album, Yay, I'm Bipolar, It's Awesome, even then he recognized, oh, like Charlie Kirk and Turning Point are using me. He recognized that within months and said, yeah, I'm not really about this. I'm done with politics. He comes back later, and this time, nobody's putting this Jew. You could say that if he was doing Brexit, yeah, that's a Charlie Kirk program. Candace Owens, I believe, like Sneako said, is married to a Jew. At the minimum, she works for Ben Shapiro, who's a Zio Jew, turbo Jew. Zionist Jew. So it's certainly, it's not him, or it's not her, and it's not Scott Adams, who he follows, or Ali Alexander, any of his other political contacts. It's probably Farrakhan, somebody who's been talking to since 2013 at least. And I would say that it's awfully convenient for whenever people talk about Jews, it's convenient to say, oh, well, they're just crazy. Oh, well, people are always rationalizing, looking for an excuse instead of, and this is what I put on my Telegram when it happened. What did he say that was factually wrong? Are Jews not all over the media industry? Like, is that not true? It is true. And is talking about their influence.
Dude, I don't know. I need to see, it's just names, man. Give me names.
Is that off limits for everybody in every circumstance? Like, are we not permitted to talk about how many Jews are in media and
Do you think Nick would, if he, he came out as, what?
Their influence might look like and what the implications of that are? Why is that a bad thing? Why do you have to be crazy to talk about that?
It is interesting how we've been sort of trained to understand that certain things are off limits, and we all reactively knew that Kanye had officially crossed a line that nobody had really crossed, and that would be probably devastating for his career. Yeah, but he said a lot of stuff in the Drink Champs interview that's pretty much like on par with the DEFCON 3 thing, or maybe even crazier. Yeah. But Nick, one thing I was surprised by is because I would have thought of you as being somebody who was like extremely pro-America, but then I read a quote that said that you said that basically Ukraine deserves what they're getting right now from Russia because Ukraine is aligned with America and America is the great Satan.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so I would distinguish between America, which is
what? He's even anti-Ukraine? I feel like those are easy points.
Like you and me and Sneako and like the people and like.
What about me and Flacco?
And yeah, and you guys too. So I just don't really know you guys as well.
Wait, what do you mean by that? What do you mean by that? The two black guys.
Well, no, I don't know Flacco. AD, I just saw you recently. But yeah, you guys too. You guys are America, and people like Kanye and Candace Owens for that matter, and Don Miller and everybody. And I would distinguish that from the regime, what I call the regime, what some people call the government, I call it the regime, because America isn't just run, the authority in America doesn't just come from the government. It comes from a true regime in the sense that the government is...
Did you miss the whole Haas Fuentes teaming up arc? Wait, did they do that? No, I missed that.
Influenced by the media, and the government influences the media. And the same is true of Silicon Valley.
Did Haas really team up with Fuentes? Is that really something he did? It wouldn't surprise me at all. Like, if Haas is that guy who's like gonna be racist like that, it wouldn't surprise me at all if he's, racist as shit.
And the same is true of the banks, and the same is true of Wall Street. And really, what you have are maybe 5 to 10.
I could see Kanye flying Nick out. Oh yeah. That's like a terrible thing, but I could legitimately see Kanye, and I think Nick can too, and that's why he's being very specific. I think I could genuinely see Kanye doing a one-on-one interview with Nick Fuentes and like being buddy-buddy with Nick Fuentes. I could 100% see that, but yeah. Yeah, I'd be worried about that.
10,000 decision makers across many elite institutions that are making decisions inside the government, outside the government, and the government is in bed with private institutions too. They're in bed with the Federal Reserve and the banks and BlackRock and Wall Street and so on. Anyway, and so when I talk about America's a great Satan and Ukraine should be punished and all this, I'm talking about this regime. I think the regime of America is evil. They do regime change in Libya. They do regime change in Iraq. They do regime change in the Balkans. And they did regime change in Ukraine. In 2014, the United States overthrew the democratically elected government of Ukraine, and they installed a pro-Western leader who was going to invite the European Union and NATO into their country, which Putin had said for years was a red line for Russia. And, and they fought this, they really have been fighting for 8 years. Realistically, ever since the Maidan Revolution in 2014, there's been this proxy war going on between the separatists
looks so engaged
and the Ukrainian government backed by NATO in Kiev. And so when I say the U.S. is a great Satan, I mean our military, our State Department, the government, our companies, our NGOs, and multinational corporations. They're spreading sin, they're spreading decadence, they're spreading liberalism, they're spreading evil and death and destruction all around the world. And so insofar as Russia is opposed to the hegemony of the American regime, and I am opposed to the American regime, then that sort of makes us allies.
Interesting. So you're hoping that Ukraine gets wiped off the face of the planet, or are you looking forward to nuclear war, or what are you hoping for in this whole thing?
Well, I've been urging de-escalation. I think that the United States needs an off-ramp here. I mean, because things just keep escalating on both, it's reciprocal on both sides, and it is going to turn into a nuclear war if there isn't restraint, because it just keeps escalating.
Did it show up?
I think the United States needs to
Your link did not show up.
accept that Russia is going to win this war. They can't, it's literally is not allowable for Putin to lose this war. So we need to recognize that. We need to recognize that Ukraine's not going to win. They're not going to take back Crimea. They're not going to take back Luhansk and Donetsk. So I think they should just withdraw, give it up. Like Elon Musk said, let's hold a UN monitored referendum in the breakaway districts. Let's say Crimea and Donbass are part of Russia. Let's say Ukraine will never join NATO. I think that's a fair resolution, which is what was sought for 20 years.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it does seem pretty crazy seeing everybody say that the risk of nuclear war is so much higher right now. But, I mean, there's still a long way to go before we actually see Putin feel like he has to make that move, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's the good thing is after Putin annexed those territories, the United States didn't really retaliate. So I thought that was
I think YouTube shadow bans messages with links changed from talk chat to I'm in live chat.
Crimea. So there's just there's just no restraint here. There needs to be some restraint.
Nick, there's one thing that I know these guys definitely want to hear you talk about. Why are you celibate?
Well,
what?
the easy answer is I am Catholic, so I think it's a sin
to have premarital sex.
Yes.
So you are a virgin at this time?
Yes.
Wow.
So so I think that the only morally illicit sex is within marriage, which is how it was for thousands of years. But also I'm just sort of I'm like an eccentric. What you gotta understand about me is I'm like an eccentric genius. Okay, so I mean not only am I celibate because it's like the right thing to do, but also I'm just not really interested in
sex. He can't connect with bots. He can't connect
to
normies on that level.
What's that?
No, he's anti-porn.
No, I'm anti-that as well.
You don't need porno to beat your dick.
So you're on permanent semen retention mode?
Well, I want to get married eventually. I'm gonna get
So you're
married
saving all your
eventually.
jizz for your future wife?
That's right. Yeah. Well,
Nick, how old are you?
I have kids. I'm 24.
Oh, he's a kid.
That's what I couldn't believe when he said that he was 18, saying that thing about the white woman fucking the dog, being like fucking the black guy. Like, he's got white power in his fucking veins, bro. Like, he knew from a young age. That's kind of like I feel like a lot of people.
Afraid of him, man.
I'm thinking he's fucking 37 years old. And what the
He was a college student causing havoc. That's how he became famous.
He's like a Nazi whiz kid. It's crazy.
I'm not a Nazi.
Come on,
ish. Like in that ballpark.
Right?
I'm a nice guy. And the thing is, like, And I put this on my Telegram. I want what's right for the country. I want
It's
to tell
funny
the truth.
he's
and the truth
racist.
is
I think they're
uncomfortable.
saying like
believe
giving him
me,
a pass
I
because
wish I
he's
could be
young.
a liberal because liberalism has a lot of nice promises.
Sounds fun.
Yeah, and that would be very easy for me to be a liberal. I was a libertarian when I was in high school, but I just realized the world is a certain way, and I wish it weren't that way. Like I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but like inequality is baked into the cake. That's sad. It's tragic in a lot of ways, but that's a human condition. And I think that the answer is compassion. The answer is compassion and understanding and respect and love for people. But we have to tell the truth because the world is going crazy right now. The world's going to shit. Things are obviously declining. And the only way that we're going to turn it around is if we have some common sense and just call it what it is. And sometimes that makes people uncomfortable and it sounds a certain way. And I know I'm belligerent. I can be belligerent, can be offensive sometimes. And
We need to follow God overall. Everything
Yeah.
is better aligned if we follow God. Nick, I just left Adam 22 studio, and that dude has a lot of Satan shit up in there, man. You got to go ahead and
he's
I have one little like
definitely
Satan
down,
head statue that somebody
He has
gave me.
one Satan head statue on his desk. He's got a Satan little doll behind it.
Somebody
He's got a
sent
Satan
that to me
tattoo.
randomly. I didn't go out of my way
I'm
to
not-
get either of
I'm
these
not
He's
things.
got
with
a
that.
Satan tattoo on his hand. He's got an upside down cross tatted on his face.
I got trust God on my knuckles, man. I ain't with that.
Based.
You got an iPod
Based.
tattoo.
I do too.
Yo, I need tattoos. Yo, Nick, Ken.
You gonna look like Rick Ross.
I know, right? No, Nick, can we talk about the white devil, aka white liberals? So pretty much like the same people 60 years ago and who was telling us that, yo, it's their cafe and like they can kick you out, because you're black and that's perfectly fine. Those are the same motherfuckers telling us now, yo, it's their platform. They can kick you off if they don't like your opinion, man. Now, what's your...
Oh my god, dude, this guy is so fucking stupid. I think this guy actually might be a Fed. I think he might be a Fed. I think that's what he's engineered to do. He's just like made to be dumb. That's his mission.
Your opinion on white liberals? I believe that they're our number one enemy.
You're like repeating his talking points back at him.
Who, Nick?
And it just sounds like, yeah, you are. It sounds less racist. No one's going to call you a Nazi for saying the same shit that Nick said.
I've never heard Nick say that. But go ahead, Nick. Sorry.
True, yeah, because I would say it's Jews. I wouldn't say it's white liberals.
No.
It's white
Here's
liberals
why.
for sure, man. White liberals are definitely the devil.
Here's why, though, because if you look at white liberals, and at least the radical
You know what's funny? They're more accepting. It's kind of ironic. They're so much more accepting of him saying it's Jews than, and maybe he's like joking to them, but he's definitely not joking. But they're more accepting of him saying Jews than like black people. If they said black people, they'd be fighting right now. They'd be like, no way. But like, feels like they're just like, he said Jew. That's scamp.
and when we're talking about white, I mean white, ACLU and other left-wing groups, they used to defend free speech. If you look at like ACLU, American Civil Liberties Union, they're a left group, but they defended the skinheads in Skokie, Illinois, when the neo-Nazis or the Ku Klux Klan wanted to do a parade.
Yeah, they switched their
Illinois.
whole shit up and nobody fucking talks about it. Yeah.
Not that I support that, obviously, but it's like they were left and they defended free speech, and now they're not like that anymore. The urge for censorship is really coming from the Jewish left, and it's not to say that there aren't white. There obviously are white liberals that are hopped up on that too. And I'd agree with you. Yeah, I mean they're imperialists, they're tyrants. They're trying to impose their way of life, but I think a lot of it does
So we're
stem
supposed
from.
to just accept that the Jews are tyrants who want to change our way of life?
They are. I mean, they are.
What do they want to change our way of life to?
Liberal,
They wanna have all the money.
international.
Nah, hold on.
multicultural.
Say it again, Sneako. Sorry.
Huh?
Say that again, please. Sorry.
I said they want to further a globalist agenda. They want to continue their power, and they want to keep.
Like, this makes no sense. Let's assume I agree with them, right? Let's make a bold assumption. I agree with them. The Jews are trying to do this. Here's the issue. Everyone's going to have to do this. You're not capable of having a modern society that isn't globalist. And the reason why is because global trade is pretty fucking cool, especially as a country that gets all their shit from China. Making all that shit in-house, your prices are going to go up dramatically. Doing what, Nick Fuentes wants to do with, like, taking women out of the workplace or out of a lot of jobs in the workplace, your prices not aren't going to go up dramatically. They're going to like triple in price. This country will be a shithole if something like that happens. You cannot take away half of the workforce and not get a ridiculous negative, let alone taking away half of the workforce and removing the massive benefits that you get to low prices from globalization. It's not there. For anybody who doesn't know what globalization is, it's trade amongst nations, right? It's allowing free trade amongst countries. That is very important to keeping the prices low and making sure imagine if you couldn't buy a fucking Toyota car. Apparently Toyota, Subaru, Mitsubishi, any of those, you couldn't buy any of those cars. You had to buy American steel. We had to use American metal to build American vehicles. It sounds nice, but the problem is it's very, very inefficient, okay? It's very, very inefficient. You ever play like a strategy game where you have fun, you play it with multiple of your friends, and some of your friends do certain things better than you do? Let's say, I don't know, you're playing Civ, and your task is to do research, to get research really quick so you can share the research with your partner, but you're not going to build up much of a military because your partner, your co-op partner, is going to be building all the military stuff. Think of that kind of as globalization, but with like literally everything, right? You have specific areas of the world that's really good at making paper. You have specific areas of the world that is really good at making, I don't know, clothes, textiles. You have very specific, right? That's what globalization allows. Everybody or specific groups of people are really good at everything. If we had to do everything in-house, our prices would go up so dramatically. The idea of having women no longer being in the workforce or generally, in the workforce in a similar capacity to the way they're in right now would be a pipe dream. We would turn into, at the very least, a second world country, probably a third world country in the matter of just a couple of years. It's not even a thing to entertain. Ahrelevant, please come home. The kids miss you, or I will claim child support. All right. You gave me fucking, what is that, pounds? Nice. I don't know what the fuck I'm gonna do with that. I hope that auto converts. I don't know if Nick/Sneako understand globalism, but the trade stuff is more internationalism. Globalism is like having a global government and less sovereignty. No, I've always heard globalism in the capacity of trade. Even when Bernie Sanders was, not super pro-globalist, which is kind of ironic, given Nick's point, that Bernie Sanders was criticized for not being pro-globalist as he should have been. It was in the capacity of trade.
Most of the wealth for themselves.
He gave you 5.65 in USD. Based!
Globalism benefits the Jews.
Thank you, Jacob.
Shit,
Yes.
hey, man.
I mean, I don't
Again,
know. I need a fact check because
Yeah.
I'm not prepared to debate that particular part of this argument, but whatever.
I hope I don't. What are they going to take now?
No, for sure. I just feel like I should be able to offer some kind of rebuttal to that, but I don't really know. I'm not learned enough on the topic.
Well, I mean, I could argue the other side or whatever. The thing is there is no voice for this side. That's to me what's peculiar. Because the thing is, I wasn't much different from any of you guys because I've been interested in politics for 12 years. I mean, I was like a real young kid.
That was the only money I had to feed our kids, and I spent it on that message.
12.
Yeah, literally, when I was 12, that's when I read Milton Friedman, Free to Choose, and I became
Wow,
real
great. Is that
libertarian
true
and everything.
about the ACLU?
And I grew up in a normal, working class household. Like I said, neither of my parents went to college. I'm like an American ethnic. I have no WASP DNA. I'm Catholic. I was in a white suburb, and I believed what was kind of fashionable at the time, which was, sort of like this right libertarianism stuff. And I went to college, and I was a Zionist. I was defending Israel.
What?
And oh yeah, big time.
You?
And, yeah,
Wow.
I was even going to work for Ben Shapiro at one point at Daily Wire. And what happened was, the big thing to me, I was actually defending Obama, believe it or not, in 2016. And I told the story on a stream recently.
I don't believe it.
Really? I hated Obama. I hated Obama. But
Did we?
in December 2016,
Not I.
he didn't veto a Security Council resolution condemning Israel because Israel is doing these civilian settlements in the West Bank, and the international community condemns it. Technically, the United States, it's against our policy too since 1967. And so Obama didn't veto this resolution condemning them. And all the conservatives, and I was a Zionist conservative too, they were all like, "Oh, you're an anti-Semite because you didn't." And I said, wait a second. I'm like, Israel's going against our own foreign policy. Obama just abstained from voting. Why is that our obligation to serve them? And they said, well, you're anti-Semitic for asking that. And I said, what? I'm like, doesn't even make any sense. I'm like, that's no different than we talk about certain things and they call us racist, sexist, Islamophobic. How is this any different? And they said, well, you just can't ask that. And I said, well, why is there so much foreign aid to Israel? Why are there so many Jewish people in media? And they said, well, you can't ask that. If you ask that, we're going to stop talking to you. And then they did. I was talking to this girl in college, Cassie Dillon, and she worked at Daily Wire, and I was asking her, why do we give them $3.8 billion per year? Why did they write the clean break memo in 1994, which was basically laid the plans for the...
I don't believe half of this shit. I believe some of the details about like him possibly asking questions or whatever, but I don't believe that the response was like this. I imagine the very human response would just be like, I don't really know, and I imagine that some of them probably were like, yeah, we'd probably get in trouble to talk about that like on air. That's probably true. But that doesn't mean like all of them were like, shut up or we're going to cancel. Like that's just, it's like a boogeyman thing. That's not something that typically happens.
Iraq war 9 years before it happened, and so on. And
what would more likely happen is people would just like not respond to him and kind of just not talk to him. That would be the far more likely response.
She's a good friend of mine. She got me my show. I started my show because of her. And she texted me at one point and said, Nick, we're not in the same movement anymore. You're an anti-Semite. I'm blocking you on everything. And then for months, she would watch my show every night and call my boss and say, Nick just said this, Nick just said that. You need to fire him. You need to take him off the air. She was sending things from my show to Media Matters. Media Matters is like one of the big left-wing, like handler, minder groups, like SPLC or ADL. She was a conservative. She worked at Daily Wire, and she was collaborating with Media Matters to smear me when I was 18, when I was a kid. And I was like, okay, so obviously it's legit. I mean, that doesn't prove it's legit, but it's a pretty good heuristic that it's like, if you're asking a question and instead of getting a persuasive rebuttal, they just cancel you. That's, again, it doesn't prove it's true, but it's a pretty good heuristic that it probably has some legitimacy to it. So that's how people say I'm like this.
Him and Sneako are one and the same. Oh, no. Him and Sneako, they're so similar. Oh no. Because somebody doesn't want you to say something, that means it must be true. That brain rot. Oh, that's fitting. It's fitting.
Twisted freak or like, oh, there's something wrong with you. You're a grifter. It's like, I believed a lot of fashionable things. And then.
Yeah, I think I'm going to wrap this up soon, by the way. Not only is it getting late for me, but also this is just kind of, whatever.
Based on experience and based on reading, I realized I was wrong,
They're just
and
letting
then I go
them
out and
rant.
say it, and then I get shunned, and then I come on here and Adam says, well, I've never heard this before. I don't know how to rebut that. It's like,
because he just heard the talking points that make him seem like a bad person because they try to censor the truth.
Well,
and
I'm
I think
saying,
that if
when you cite specific studies or whatever, it's like, okay, well, I'm not going to be able to rebut that because I'm not directly familiar with that. I'm sure
But
that
it's not really
some of the stuff that you just said about the history of Israel or whatever, I'm sure that there's going to be people who call into question certain details about that. I'm not really educated on that, so I at least want to admit my shortcomings there.
The only reason I'm so awake is
not what you say, it's how you say it. It's Nick's general attitude. It's the fact that he's smart. He threatens the government. He threatens everything that the liberal agenda is about, and they just need to paint a picture of him that's bad. Like when I first had him on my stream, everybody was saying no, no, no. I had him on, and I thought he was cool. And later on my Discord, everyone was saying no, no, no. He's a bad person, white supremacist. But I'm like, I talked to him, and he seems fine. Everybody will try to shut out the truth because you're not supposed to hear it anymore. And I think that if we move it to the right direction, I genuinely right here, I'm endorsing it. I think someone like Nick Fuentes can win the presidency in 20 years.
Wow.
If America does not fall apart before then, I think he has the capability. I think he believes in America. I think he believes in the people. I think he cares about the right things. And I think he sees the truth. And he's also a good speaker. People could follow him.
I think somebody who doesn't believe in race mixing is going to have a hard time getting elected to be the president. But at the same time, I do have to admit the rabbit hole is real because if it wasn't for you and Destiny being cordial enough to sit down with Nick, then I would not have thought of him as being, somebody who is safe to platform, which obviously you guys can tell that that's like part of my concern here. I've had a lot of people reaching out saying that I'm fucking crazy for even having Nick on the show. But at the end of the day, I think we should be able to have conversations with people we disagree on, although I am currently wondering if this podcast is going to get taken down for Holocaust denial.
There's a really good chance this is not going to make it.
That part might have to get censored, which is a real shame because then where does that content go? Maybe that goes on the No Jumper Rumble.
Yeah, I would put some of it on Patreon, but yeah, it's gonna get taken down. Everything that I had with Nick got removed or got me strikes and stuff like that.
Really?
So it's a genuine point.
Did you hear that Destiny is flying to London to talk to Just Pearly Things? Fuck me, man. He's beating me to all the content, dude. I wanted to do that. I just didn't have my passport. Legitimately, if I had my passport, I would have reached out to her to do it. God damn it. That sucks, dude. Fuck me, man.
if you want to keep up your channel, I would be careful.
Does
with it.
Destiny make you like be careful about what you'll talk about when you stream with him? He won't let you.
No,
talk
Destiny's
about COVID,
fine
or-
because Destiny's a federal, like he's a Fed agent liberal, so he's able to say whatever he wants with Nick because he disagrees with him. So they want you to disagree with Nick. They don't if you agree with him at any point. Right now, I see you guys listening to him.
Who is that person? They get like fresh and fit, but if they were a woman, a white woman,
making some good points. That's gonna get you in trouble. If you call him a Nazi for the rest of the show, we can stay up. But I gotta get going.
What do you think?
You're good, protected. I gotta get going. Thanks for having me on.
Do you think that Destiny's posture is aggressive enough that that's why they don't feel like they have to take it down? Is because he's like arguing with him a lot?
I think it concerns the what we talk about, because and I don't know what Sneako got banned for specifically. I didn't see what was flagged. I don't watch all of his streams to know necessarily, but with Destiny, I would say that it's because we never really talked about COVID. I think that's probably a part of it, because with YouTube, there's specific things that you're not allowed to talk about. Like you can't talk about election fraud, you can't talk about COVID, and those are two things I don't know that we've ever talked about. But yeah, I think it does have a lot to do with the fact that he pushes back. I think that insofar as you're answering it, insofar as you're like you said, aggressively combating it, then they don't consider that like advocacy, which is kind of fucked up that YouTube gets to decide, oh, this is your opinion. You don't get to have a YouTube. Oh, you disagree with that opinion. Okay, then you're fine. Like if censorship is reaching into that, it's one thing to say you can't say it. It'd almost be better if that's how it was. Right. You can't say this thing. But they're like adjudicating. Well, this guy doesn't believe this, so he gets to have an account. And that's kind of weird. That's a little bit. I think that's invasive.
It is such a weird feeling to be having a conversation.
I think that's fine. I mean, that's understandable, isn't it?
With somebody, and
are you gonna go to a debate con next month? Probably not. I don't even know it. Do you want to watch the new Change My Mind vid from Destiny yesterday? It's a Nick fan and only 25 minutes. I'm probably going to have to watch that another time.
Normally, the only stuff that I'm thinking of in terms of stuff we can't show on camera is like boobs and maybe like somebody doing drugs or something. Like, there's not that many things we really have to avoid having on camera. So it's weird to be having a conversation where I'm like, no, this idea that he's saying right here is potentially enough to get this video removed. Very like strange feeling I've never really had before.
Yeah, man. Yo, listen, Nick, can we talk about our good friend Tariq Nasheed?
Yeah, how you feel about him?
Wait, so first off, did you guys have a debate at some point or a conversation on air?
No, we've never talked.
Wait, so I think he said during like my interview, and he was spanking one of like your friends or somebody associated with you, and then like they got to trolling. Yeah, so like, what's your like your opinion on our good friend Tariq Nasheed?
Honestly, I'm not the biggest fan. I just think that I mean, to me, he comes across as sort of disingenuous. Like as an example, he said that I was begging to do a debate with him on your show. I've never talked to Tariq. My people have never talked to Tariq, like my team. I mean, he's debated people I know, but so, I mean, he just straight up lied. He's like, oh yeah, that white supremacist, he's been begging to debate me. It's like, that's not even true. That's just a bald-faced lie. And he also said that I'm like a troll and like I conceal my real views and I'm just not a serious guy. Like, that's not true either. And I feel like he makes a lot of these broad assertions like that, just sort of flippantly. So I think he's a little bit disingenuous, but he's funny.
You do give me like supervillain vibes right now.
Why do I give you supervillain vibes?
I don't know, man. There's something about you, Nick.
You could see him having a Joker arc.
It's the background.
I like the Joker, yeah.
It's the background.
Right?
Uh-oh.
It's kind of like
Do you think Just Burly Things and channels alike are a dead enterprise? Do you think that these kinds of shows will shift the balance towards men, or is it all futile? I think they'll shift the balance towards men, but I don't like the way that they will do it. I think Just Pearly Things is, I think she makes some good points, but I also think she makes some bad points. Like, I think she is very similar to Fresh and Fit in her content, where she makes some points that are pretty disagreeable. I like that there is greater conversations about the struggles that men face, and the problems that men have, and the kind of pressures that women put men under, and the kind of pressures that even other men put men under. But I don't like the way that it's being handled by these people. So, yeah, that's unfortunate. But, I mean, she's blowing up, so there's clearly demand for her product.
background. Yo, so here.
we lost Sneako.
Yeah,
That's okay.
we told you.
Yeah, he laughed.
Oh, he said he was leaving.
Yeah,
Oh, my bad. I got distracted by TikTok.
Nah, yo, Nick. So like, what's your take on, I guess, black folks receiving reparations?
I'm against it.
Why?
Because I think that, I'll grant that the Institute, first of all, I'll say, in case you guys don't, like, if this needs to be said, I'm against slavery, okay? I'm against the chattel slavery of black people. Obviously, it goes without saying. But just in case, because you guys are, at least Adam's saying I'm a Nazi or white supremacist, I'm against that.
Well, AD probably feels reassured to know that.
Yeah, okay, good. I just want to let you know explicitly. I think that there's a lot of historic injustices and wrongdoings, and you could say that slavery was bigger, like more particular, but it's just like, who's going to pay for it? Are you going to track down the slave owners' descendants and take the money from them and give it to the descendants of the slaves? And how do you calculate that? It's horrible. It's a horrible wrongdoing, which, is obviously set blacks back. It's a big disadvantage that they were enslaved, of course. But where does that start and where does that end? I mean, do you go to Africa?
Sub 5, by the way, Archytas? Dude, if you're a sub 5, that's not, you can I'm doing a whole fucking self-improvement whatever meme arc, and I'm not gonna cope and say that everybody can go from like anywhere to anywhere on some self-improvement shit. I'm not like that. I ain't no blue pill nigga. But I do believe that people can make significant strides through taking serious steps. I don't know you personally. I don't know what your situation is, but I imagine you can make some improvements to your life to be able to get to places that you want to be, or at least places that's better to than where you are, right? I just wouldn't look at like crazy like goated people who have like who are living life on easy mode, people like Hassan who literally are AFKing through life on medic difficulty, and then like go like, oh well, why don't I do that? Like you can improve your life that you are currently living. That's part of the big reason why I liked and I am enjoying going to the gym and learning how to do a lot of stuff that will make me more desirable, not only in the marketplace but also in a dating marketplace and shit like that. Is because it's because I'm still me, but it's just it's just a general improvement to my life. I'm probably going to be paid more. I'm going to be hired, more. I'm going to be fired less and stuff like that, and that's relative to where I was 2 months ago, right? And my goal is 2 years to have a pretty significant transformation in my life, and I think that's pretty realistic when it comes to the gym, when it comes to my understanding of code to potentially get a job, and when it comes to my social development, when it comes to like talking to people.
Hold them into slavery accountable. I just feel like that's it's just impractical.
Here, so like, is your argument it's impractical? I don't understand how it's gonna work, or are you against it if they could figure it out?
I'm also against it in principle because the people that they would be robbing, the people they'd be stealing from to pay for that, at some point it involves the government is going to take money from some people and give it to other people, and that's like the sins of the father type stuff. It's like we're going to take your money because of what your ancestors did, and we're going to give it to somebody else because of what their ancestors suffered. So in principle, I'm opposed to it for that as well.
Yeah, I'm not an FBA, so I'm not getting any coins. Like, do you want to respond back or no?
Wait, so you think AD would be a recipient and you wouldn't be?
Yeah,
I definitely would be a recipient.
yeah, I wouldn't since I'm not.
I mean, our people was brought to this country, you know what I'm saying, like forcefully at the end of the day. So, I mean, I do feel, like you said, there's a lot of injustice in the world. There's a lot of situations that we could bring up. But yeah, like we've been pushed back. Like you said, we're still like trying to recover. We're still getting our, we still ain't got our just due when it comes down to that. And I do feel like my people should get our reparations.
And that's probably the thing that people really want to know about how Nick really thinks is when you say, oh, black people are always fighting on airplanes or whatever, do you think that black people are fighting on airplanes because of systematic racism that set them back in terms of poverty and everything? Or do you think that that's the truth because there's something in the soul of a black person that just makes them violent, which I think a lot of people would find that to be the offensive explanation. And most people would assume you to have that opinion, right?
Well, I wouldn't say it's your soul, but when we're talking about behavior, the question is you've got behaviors, criminality, and if you want to say pugilism, fighting is a behavior. And so the question would be, if black people are behaving in a different way than white people generally, why is that? What would you attribute that to? And the explanation for all of it, all the disparities between blacks and white people, liberals say, is injustice. It's racism, it's bigotry, because they assume that white people and black people in a vacuum are going to behave exactly the same, perform exactly the same, have the same capacity and faculties and so on. And so if they want...
I don't even necessarily believe this is true. I think that there's people that would just say the differences that may occur from some genetic difference are so marginal that it's not even really worth concerning yourself with. And I think I would agree with that. I think, could there be some kind of a genetic difference in predisposed behavior? Absolutely. But it's far less than what we are seeing right now. And we have information to back that up, right? And we're talking about just simply, that when black people are put in environments where they have very little money, kind of behave like white people when they have very little money. But when black people are given a moderate amount of income, middle class income, they behave similar to white people when they have middle class income. There's when you control for income and stuff, it gets very similar, and not perfectly similar, I will grant, but then, you have to control for X or Y, whatever shit, and so on and so forth. And when you control for these various different things, the margins become very, very slim. And when those margins become pretty slim, then, you're kind of working with that's when you kind of develop your thought process of, yeah, it's probably a very large component of this environment.
up in a different place, well, something had to happen in the middle, which was discrimination, racism. They were brought up the wrong way, educated the wrong way. And I would say that it's wrong to assume that behavior is not genetic. Behavior, as we know, is genetic. Sociopathy, antisocial behavior, there is a strong heritability for those kinds of things. And so there's a lot of different hypotheses about what gene is it necessarily or whatever, but we do know that antisocial behavior is genetic. Can it also be environmental? Certainly. We also know that people have a temperament. Some people, it's just not in their temperament to fight. Would you say that's because they were taught that? We all know, because if you know children, some children like to fight, some children don't. Is it because they were taught that? Sometimes it's brothers and sisters by the same parents in the same school. They have a different nature. And we could say nature's said another way, they have a different genetic makeup. And so I would say that, yeah, I think that why do blacks commit 60%? It's 2021, it was actually 60%, not 50. Why do they commit 60% of the violent crime? I think because there is a genetic basis for their behavior. Africans lived in Africa for thousands and thousands of years without a lot of mixing with people on other continents. The idea that we would all behave and think and be exactly the same as groups, to me, is somewhat ridiculous.
Isn't there I don't know how true the meme is. Isn't there fucking crazy genetic diversity? I know the meme is that there's more genetic diversity in Africa than the rest of the world. In total, the rest of the world. But isn't there, even if that's not true, there's a fuck ton of genetic diversity inside of Africa. The idea that just Africans were only just Africa.
So yeah, I think that there's a cultural aspect, sure, but I also think there's a genetic aspect too.
Nick,
it's not their soul, it's genetics.
Nick, I can grow up where you grew up, and I'll probably be just like you. You know what I mean? I'll be a whole totally different person. And a lot of these, a lot of black people, and you say they commit all the crimes and do all the stuff like that. There's liquor stores on every corner where we come from. You know what I mean? There's guns being, conspiracy, they're being smuggled in. They ain't even really know conspiracy and stuff. It's easier for me to get a gun illegally than it is to be legally at the end of the day. And there's a lot of it's a lot. The school systems are more fucked up. Everything is fucked up when it comes down to that. And I think now, you said something earlier that black people, our issues get put to the top of the list now versus white people, correct?
Yeah.
He said yeah.
Oh, okay. No, but yeah, I feel like a lot of things is location. A lot of things is a lack of opportunity at the end of the day. I mean, even if you look at something like Section 8, you know what I'm saying? It's you can't have a man in the household, you know what I mean? Or with Section 8. So, I mean, a lot of these kids are growing up without fathers, without father figures in their system. I mean, in the neighborhoods and stuff like that. And there's a lot of situations, bro, that we can sit there and break down to why a lot of crime happens, why things are happening the same way.
Yeah, and like I said, I think you can explain it. There are cultural and environmental explanations for it, but notice that liberals say it's just that. They refuse to even entertain the idea that there's a genetic basis for any of this, that it's racial, that's sort of cooked in. I'm not saying that it's all the way genetic. I'm saying that, because you're right. I mean, those things everything you just said is true about Section 8, about the incentive structure by these government programs, about food deserts and things. That's all true. But at the same time, you also look at behavior, and behavior is genetic. And IQ is another thing where Destiny, and I use him as an example because he's a liberal and he's sort of on the other side. He didn't say this on your show because Adam, you asked him, you said, what do you make of the race and IQ thing? Do you think that there's a disparity in IQ? Mm-hmm. And he skipped over that and said, well, here's why there is. He never said there is, but he believes it all the same. He believes there's a disparity in IQ. IQ is heritable, and IQ is also something that's a predictor. It's the best predictor of future success. If you look at people and you take a cross-section of a lot
of... To deny that there's a disparity in IQ is to deny material reality. The question is why that IQ disparity exists, right? And there's multiple different hypotheses that people have poised about it. And I'm not even saying personally that every single race of people, I would even go down to the ethnicity. I don't even think every single ethnicity of people have the same IQ. I don't think that's the case. But, it wouldn't surprise me at all. It'd be kind of weird if there wasn't at the very least some variability. But the rates that we're seeing, again, are a little bit too heavy. When we look at things that are controlled for income, get far closer when you control, black people for income, environment, and shit like that. IQ gets far closer to each other, and it's just okay. What is I don't know how many people know this, what is a phenomenal predictor of IQ is just something as simple as how readily available you are to study, to take the pre-tests for IQ. IQ tests, like the practice IQ tests. That is that is the single greatest predictor for your IQ being high. Because availability to the practice IQ test, obviously, will result in better scores on the IQ test. And there's also just certain cultures of people that the IQ test are better suited towards because it's either in the manner that it's spoken or like written, I should say, or the manner that it's delivered. That it's just far more palatable to specific groups of people. So yeah, it's,
different people, and you look at where they wind up, the best predictor of their success is IQ, as opposed to other environmental things, other factors.
That's not true. Which one? What's not true, Gary?
That's not a perfect one-to-one, but it's the best one.
You can't study for an IQ test. You literally can. You literally can. The practice IQ tests thing stems from the reason why practice IQ tests are valuable to individuals when they take IQ tests is, one, it gears you in the mindset that is similar to that of which the IQ test perform. Have you ever taken a practice IQ test? Maybe some fake online one? No, a real one. You can, hold on. This is, not only is this just false, because literally you could look up the answers, all right? So it is false that you can't even practice it. That's just laughably false to begin with. But the idea that you can't practice it, the practice IQ tests gets you an understanding of what types of questions they're going to do, so that you can practice what those things are. I was tested for a gifted program in the 3rd grade, and it's a multi-day thing, and but I don't understand what this is supposed to, and
IQ is
you can practice it like you can practice for the SATs. I do grant it is a little bit different than the SATs, but yes, you can do it in a similar capacity. You can understand what types of questions they're going to ask, which is generally the biggest disparity. Is people going into IQ tests completely blind have far worse scores than the people who take practice IQ tests, because you generally know what they're going to ask. Like rotational positioning of certain objects is a lot of things, a lot of people wouldn't even know that's on IQ tests. Like where you take certain images and then you try and rotate them inside of your mind in order to understand what they're trying to actually convey in reality. This is something that a lot of people don't even know is on a test going into it, which absolutely affects your score if you know that is going to be on the test. So that way you can practice doing certain methods for this. And then somebody, like, I don't know, I feel like this goes without saying. There's multiple things on an IQ test that you can practice and get better at over time. There's literally people that practice IQ tests and get higher IQs over time because they take similar practice tests and they get better at it.
Genetically heritable trait. And so he would say, well, your IQ is formed by your environment. Your behavior is formed by your environment. Everything's formed by your environment. What we're finding out with modern science is that so much is genetic. And I don't like that. It's uncomfortable.
Reading comprehension. Yeah, Tara, that's another big one, is reading comprehension. That's why I stated about the cultural thing. If not only your reading comprehension is good, but also your reading comprehension relative to the types of phraseology and shit on the IQ test will absolutely improve your scores, because you give you more time to be able to answer the questions, because you take less time reading them or trying to interpret what they really mean, right? It's like similar to those logic questions where it's like, Cindy goes out of her door, makes a left, goes 1 block, makes a right, then goes 3 blocks, goes 4 blocks to the left, and then 5 blocks straight. From there, she makes another right 3 blocks, and then makes another right 7 blocks. Relative to Cindy's front door, where is she? Like, stuff like that, where it'll be weird to interpret your head around, but there's actually ways to interpret that easier than just like taking step by step by step by step. There's ways and methods you can kind of break that question down to make it faster to process. And I literally did this myself. Do you think Destiny has kind of taken an L by making it look safe to interview Nick, which led to this No Jumper podcast? Yeah, I think it's fair to interpret him as taking an L there. I think he knew that that was a possibility to what he was doing. As I stated inside of this interview, Nick Fuentes has said multiple times, used Destiny multiple times as somebody he's had multiple different pretty fervent disagreements with. So I think at least the argument that Destiny is friendly with Nick Fuentes to the point of like platforming him in a non-combative way or whatever is that's not really justified. But yeah, he definitely, I mean, he was name dropped by Adam as being somebody who was used to discover whether or not they were safe to platform.
It's sad, it's tragic, it's inequality, but it is real. And if you want to understand how to help people and how to make things better, you're not doing people any favors by saying, well,
IQ test is a sham anyway. Generally, yeah, as a quotient for a quotient, whatever you got to say, for intelligence, yes. But I believe IQ tests, and this is just intuitive. I don't know if it's like necessarily true, but it is intuitive. IQ tests are a good way to determine cognitive decline. So like you take 1 or 2 IQ tests to get your general area of like where your IQ currently is, and then you establish it over a period of time to see if you have cognitive decline or some kind of your mental faculties that are like degrading. You relate it to yourself, which is actually I think what a lot of psychologists and shit use it for right now. That's what people use IQ for at the moment, primarily.
They just are a victim of circumstance or something like this. So, because I agree with you, those things are all adverse, obviously, but nobody will hear out the case that maybe we're not all starting from the same place to begin.
It's a predictor of success, so that's not necessarily true. So it correlates with success. It's not a predictor. We don't know if it's a predictor of success or if it's correlated with success. It makes sense that it would be correlated with success, obviously, because an IQ test, as what it would be made for, which is to generally trying to judge your intelligence, would probably find things that we would generally find to be intelligent to be what is relevant on the test or get you a high score on the test. Right, which might be, high capacity for memory and shit like that. That's generally going to be true. But so when we say it's a predictor for success, you might be putting the cart before the horse necessarily, right? Because if we're going to structure an IQ test, we're going to try and work backwards, and that's what a lot of that shit does, right? There's individuals, multiple different, so like the most common argument I've heard for like why IQ is a good predictor for success is higher paying jobs tend to have individuals with higher IQ. The only issue with that is you would expect that necessarily because individuals who have higher paying jobs are probably going to have higher reading comprehension, probably going to be culturally endemic to places where they can do things like have time to study, have time to practice, have time to do these things. So you would naturally expect any test, let alone an IQ test, to be far more to be done to a greater degree by individuals that are materially successful. Because people who tend to be materially successful tend to have grown up in a materially successful environment, right? A lot of doctors come from circumstances of upper middle class life where they can afford to have their kids have a tutor, have this, have that. That makes it a lot easier to be able to perform better in every single capacity in life.
Which I think there's a lot of evidence for that.
So you're saying genetically black people are more angrier, or we have a gene in us to commit more crimes. Was your logic correct?
Well, it's that they're more antisocial and a higher incidence of sociopathy, and on average lower IQ. And you look at the societies that Africans form elsewhere. I think it bears this out. People look at Africa. Africa's a total disaster. It's a total dump. Sub-Saharan Africa.
How are you gonna say that? We have most of the vast resources from Africa.
It was also colonized by everybody in Europe.
Taking everything from that.
That's where I'm going with that.
Okay.
So, people look at the state of Africa today, which is just unmitigated disaster, and they say,
okay, I think I'm done with this. It's just, I don't know. It kind of just feels like Nick Fuentes just kind of rambling. Yeah. It is what it is, I guess. Okay, I'm gonna be done for the day. We are going to. I obviously can't raid, but yeah, we're gonna be done for the day. I'm gonna go ahead and go. I'm gonna go to sleep. But tomorrow, I'm actually going to go. This is a little bit of the self-improvement, whatever weird shit. I'm actually gonna go to the mall for several hours, and I'm gonna try to figure out if I can't get new clothes to be able to potentially, get my style a jump start. I'm gonna go to the mall for like a couple hours to go see if I can't, find some new clothes that I feel will look a little bit better on me, because I think this will be the first time in my life where I really try a concerted effort to get drip. IRL stream it? No, I'm not going to IRL stream in my local mall. But I will probably take pictures. That'll probably happen. I'll probably post them on social media if it goes well. That's probably how it'll work. So if you want to, be in for that, then go to my Twitter, which I will post right now. And I'll probably talk about it on stream afterwards. Okay. You guys have a good rest of your day. I'm going to go ahead and go. Yeah. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Hopefully the shopping goes well. Maybe it won't. Who really cares? It's only 3 hours of my life anyway. All right. See you guys later. You guys have a good rest of your day.